Welcome back to another episode of the All Aces podcast. I'm really excited to bring this one to you guys. This one's really close to home, actually. So we got a big name out of Visalia coming in. We got Cody Gibson. We're going to go over a little bit of his background, everything. So you guys better stay tuned for this. Let's get into it.
I've been super excited, bro, because a lot of your story kind of resonates with a portion of my lifetime, or like my life. And like Nate was saying earlier, man, like you really have been putting on for the Valley, and you're inspiring a lot of people out here, man. That because obviously the MMA sport has grown a lot since you first started back in 2014, or even a little bit before that, you know. And I think your story, man, like the grit and kind of carrying that chip on your shoulder, and like just really never giving up, dude. And like just every time adversity shows up, you kind of just like give it a flying knee, you know. Dude, it's badass, man. Yeah, it's just like looking at like just doing a little bit of research, man. Like some of the stuff that I was like, dude, that's so crazy. Like, it's just a badass story, bro. And I know that us telling your story, man, and you sharing some of the stuff that maybe people haven't heard is really gonna impact a lot of people, and in a really positive way, man. So I'm super excited for this one, dude.
Yeah, we can't wait, bro. We talked about this one before. Whenever we first started the podcast a couple months back, and then especially as of recently, we always have like a list of like podcast guests we want to get on the podcast. And we're like, okay, well, how can we brainstorm to get that podcast guest on the pod? And this was one of the ones, bro, we had circled for a while. And we were kind of like masterminding, all right, so like, who knows this guy? Who knows this guy? How can we get him on the podcast? So we're super excited. Like these guys said, please help us welcome Cody Gibson to the All Aces podcast. Thank you for coming, bro.
Jeez.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys. I saw you guys. I saw your podcast, the production value. Like, it was cool to see like someone from the Valley. Like, you guys look like the big time, you know. Like, I don't know anything about the podcast game, but like when I watched your guys', I went back and watched a couple episodes, and I was like, dude, they do it like legit. So,
I appreciate
you
that.
guys.
Yeah, that means a lot coming from you,
Yeah, it
man.
does. So to kick things off, dude, I want to get a little bit into like a little bit of your background, right? So, you weren't born in Visalia, right? We were born in Oklahoma, I believe.
Yeah, little town, Blackwell, Oklahoma, in 1987.
Dropped the year and
Getting
everything.
old. Yeah, I was born in Oklahoma, and then I was in foster care, me and my brother, and then we ended up getting adopted and moving to Visalia in '89. So I was 2, he was 3, and yeah, so we grew up here. You know, this is home to me. You know, yeah, born, and I've gone to Oklahoma a couple times since. So it's cool to go back and see people, and it's a different world out there.
Yeah,
you know?
I
So,
imagine, man.
It's kind of good, I think, to expose yourself to different environments and like how people live.
Yeah.
You know, and it makes you think about like how you live. You know, and like, oh, maybe, I don't know. Like sometimes just I put myself in those situations, and you kind of see things. And so the last trip I went back 2 years ago, and I spent a couple weeks back there, and it was fun, man. It's a lot of fishing. It's fun.
A lot of fishing. You like fishing?
I like to fish.
Hey, Mark he's a big fisher right there, man. That's the fisherman.
That's his main thing he does right there.
What, lake fishing? Yeah. I'm getting into sea fishing now because I'm over the coast, so
Yeah.
I've been doing a lot of deep sea fishing, and that's fun too. So I
Is
don't
the
really,
deep
I'm
sea
not very
fishing-
good, but like if I go with someone who really knows their stuff and they could help me, you know.
Is the sickness really like a thing? Like whenever, because I heard when you go out deep sea fishing, it's like a big thing. You have to take pills. You have to like take those nauseous pills. And
I don't have to. I went about 2 weeks ago, and I had 2 of my cousins come into town, and they all drank a lot of alcohol the night before.
Oh,
And I wasn't.
bad
I
idea.
wasn't drinking, so. And I had to like cut my cousin off. One of them, I was like, "Hey man, we have to get there by 8 a.m. or something, you know, in Morro Bay. We got to be there." And so anyway, they were all throwing up the whole time, and I don't know how much of it was seasickness and how much of it was hangover.
They were just hungover. You cut
both.
him off. Just let him keep
Little
going.
both.
Let him keep going.
So yeah, but for me, I know some people they take, what is that stuff called? Some with the D, like Dramamine.
I don't even know.
Dramatone or
I don't know, something like
Dramatone or
Tramadol.
that?
I feel like you would need that, honestly. I
Yeah,
feel like you would probably
I have a
be the
soft
one that
stomach,
needs
I'll be
it.
honest with you, yeah.
If you
When you go
get
to the
car
mountains-
sick, you know, then you're probably gonna get seasick.
Yeah, it depends who's
Yeah.
driving. Like if he's driving, definitely.
Yeah,
a
if
little
I'm
bit
driving,
car sick a
everybody
little
gets
bit.
car sick.
Hitting those corners fast right there.
But aside from car sick, bro, I know you. So you said you grew up here in Visalia. You went to Mount
Whitney.
Whitney, right? Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
And then at Mount Whitney, I know that you were wrestling,
Mhm.
right? Okay.
Yeah,
Talk about
once I found wrestling, like, so I was getting in a lot of trouble. Elementary school, I was getting suspended constantly. My grade, I was always decent in school, like the academic side of things,
Mhm.
but like just a lot of anger, you know, like I don't know, like I always had a chip on my shoulder, and I wasn't like a bully. I was like the guy who like saw a bully teasing someone else, and then I would like interject and like or put myself in positions to be like that I know they would respond to. oh, now you're talking shit. So, oh, I guess we got to fight, you know? Like,
He's like, yes, I have to.
like I would put myself in positions like that on purpose because I think I just like to fight. And I don't know. I just always had a chip on my shoulder. And so I was getting in a lot of trouble. Junior high, same shit. Like always getting in trouble, getting suspended. And then my freshman year, I got suspended like the first week of school for getting in a fight. And then I found wrestling. And once I found wrestling, it like changed everything.
So it was in your blood to do that right off the bat, huh? You were like the first Kick-Ass. You guys seen the movie Kick-Ass where he just goes and like kicks people's ass like as like a superhero?
Yeah.
You're like doing that basically in like
No,
junior
I was
high.
getting my ass kicked some of the times. You know?
Well, he did too in that movie, so I guess it's like right there.
I took some beatings, but because I didn't know how to fight, you know, but I liked
In the
to do it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just once I found wrestling, and then all of a sudden it was like, so you're telling me in this controlled environment with these rule sets, but I pretty much still get to beat someone's ass. You know, like
That's kind of what it is, though. Yeah.
it is.
Exactly what it
Wrestling's
is, yeah.
two bulls colliding, you know, and so then I straightened up, you know, like my life straightened up, and then I had I had something, not only for a sense of identity and purpose, but like I had like something to a reason to go to school, a reason to do well in school, a reason to go to college, you know, like all the things. So for me, I always try to advocate to kids like sports for guys like me and a lot of other dudes and girls, I'm sure, like sports keep you without sports and education, like a lot of us wouldn't have made it, you know. So
I feel like that structure too of sports, you know what I mean? You get to learn a lot from sports. It teaches you a lot of life lessons. I feel like people look at sports and like, oh, I get to play this sport, but there's a lot of life lessons that you learn from your coaches and then the structure with it, from like training program, eating. So I agree, especially for kids. Even if you don't have problems, it's a really good way for you to kind of get that structure in and kind of figure out to learn things about life too.
yeah, I mean,
Like
how
an
many?
outlet,
Go
for
ahead.
sure. Oh yeah, I would say it's really like an outlet, like you were saying, bro. I mean, if you like fighting, that's something you like to do, or you have just so much energy to get out. Being in a controlled environment, bro, like you said, it's just like two bulls colliding where you can really just let loose, and there's a referee to break it up. At the end of the day, all that energy, all that eager or that anger, you know, that stuff that you had, you can let it out, and you don't get in
Yeah.
trouble for it. So
Exactly. Stop getting suspended. Which is
Actually,
nice.
the people praise you when you let it out on the mat. You know what I mean? So yeah, that's cool. You know, I could really. That's a really good point you brought up, dude. Because I was the same way. I came from Mexico, and then I was living with my family for the first few years, and then eventually my family financially we weren't doing well at all. So one of my best friends at the time, I told him, hey, dude, I think, because my mom was like, hey, I think we're going to go back to Mexico. And I was like, that's crazy. We just came here, you know. I was like about 12 when I got here. So his family ended up adopting me. It was never like legit on paper, but like they took me and I moved in. And same thing, dude, you know, you always have that chip on your shoulder. And looking back at it, bro, kind of the way you described it was perfect. Because I did have a lot of like, kind of like, fuck you, like a lot of anger in me, you know. And you just have it, you know what I mean? It's you just kind of have it.
You still have it.
Huh?
You still have that shit.
Yeah, well, yeah. I feel like it never really goes away, you know?
Yeah.
And you're always trying to prove people wrong. You're always trying to, you know, prove yourself that you can do the things that, you know, you think you can do, and prove people wrong when they say that you can't do things, right? And I found that for me was football. It was like the perfect way, dude, where, you know, it gave me something to do, you know? Kept me out of trouble. I showed up, went to practice, trained, ate, and all that stuff, dude. And it really kind of was like a savior in a sense, because I mean, dude, without that, like, I don't know what I would do with all the extra energy, you know? Kind of like you, right? You were getting in trouble and stuff. I was never much of a fighter, I'll be honest with you. But, yeah, dude, so that definitely rings home, man.
We had, I remember when I was teaching at El Diamante, and we had the police department come in for like a training, and the dude, the officer, was out there doing a PowerPoint. He puts this like pie chart on the board, and he said, "This is the percentage of incidents we have with youth with the police department. Here's our graph." And between 3 and 5 o'clock, it was like this giant spike, you know? And they're like, so this is the time that kids, well, what's going on? They're not in school, and their parents are still at work, you know? Like, and so what you do between 3 and 5 as a kid, as a high school kid, you know, are you going to, either you're doing sports or some sort of band or something, you're involved in drama, whatever it is. If you're not involved in anything, like, chances are you're involved with something you shouldn't be involved in, you know? So it just is what it is.
Oh, so you're a stand-up wrestler at Mount Whitney, right? And then that transfer over, and from what I've read, it was you're a 2-time All-American JUCO wrestler, right? So I want to get into that a little bit, bro. So when did you really figure out, like, okay, shoot, I'm really good at wrestling. I want to pursue this. What did that moment look like for you?
When I started wrestling, I started wrestling because I didn't make the basketball team my freshman year, and I loved basketball. Like junior high, I was on the basketball team, but my problem was my freshman year I was 5'4", about $130, a little bit of chubby, and I just hadn't hit my growth spurt. And then my sophomore year, I shot up to 5'10", skinny, you know, and like I probably could have played basketball because I was pretty good, but I just wasn't big enough. So I made it all the way to the final cuts. I'd already bought my shoes, you know, for the season, and then I didn't make the final cut, and I was freaking heartbroken. And my brother had started wrestling. I have a brother who's a year older than me, and he had started wrestling 7th grade. My dad had kind of encouraged him to get into it, and he was a smaller guy, and so he was like trying to convince me, just come out for wrestling. And then I did, and I was like, dude, I love this. It's just like, it was what I was meant to do, you know? And I lost my first 27 matches.
Straight?
Whoa.
Straight, my freshman year. And I'm talking like bottom of the barrel matches, like frosh off tournaments. Like I'm wrestling the other guys who aren't good at wrestling.
Wrestling a chick maybe in there every now and then.
And I remember at a JV tournament that we hosted in Mount Whitney, I went 0-2 and got my ass kicked. And I had 2 black eyes. And I'm walking, my mom and me are walking to the van, you know, to leave. And she's like, well, maybe you should try a different sport. And I was like, looked at her and I was like, what are you talking about? This is the funnest thing I ever did in my life.
I enjoyed it, though.
So for me, it was just a love of it. And then I didn't play, I quit all sports. I wrestled year round. Me and my brother were traveling. Mount Whitney didn't have like a powerhouse wrestling team. Our wrestling coach was a great guy. But he was a football coach, and they didn't have a wrestling coach, so he literally never wrestled a day in his life. He was 300 pounds. Like, that was our coach, and so he was great at facilitating tournaments and, like, making sure me and my brother, especially in our junior, senior year, got to big tournaments around the country and could fundraise for it to get there.
Yeah.
I mean, I was slinging beef jerky most of high school for wrestling tournaments or camps, you know, like, always slinging beef jerky. And, yeah, so I just, like, just immersed myself in wrestling year round, and that's how we got good. Is just other guys were on the team, and they would be there from like October to February, and you'd see them again next October, and they're like, why are these 2 boys getting so good? And it was like, well, we never left the wrestling room, you know,
on the mat all day, every day.
yeah. So yeah, man, that was, and then it led me to go to college and wrestle. So it was a lot of, I wrestled 2 years at junior college in Bakersfield, and then 3 years up in the Bay Area for Menlo College. I did a little bit of time at Cal State Bakersfield, but then I got a better opportunity to go not D1, so I went NAIA and just had a better scholarship. So ended up there for 3 years, and then I started fighting my sophomore year of college. I took my first pro fight in the summertime. So I would just come back to Visalia in the summer, and I'd crash on my brother's couch. He was working for the school district as a janitor at night, so they were working like 3 to midnight shifts. And he had him and our buddy that we went to high school with were roommates, and they let me crash on the couch. I had a buddy who was training mixed martial arts. I went in there for like a week, had fun, and they were like, "You want to fight?" I was like, "Yeah, sure."
Bro, so I want to stay on that real quick, dude.
That's
because,
insane.
like so far, it's just from your story, Ben, you've jumped into things like, especially like wrestling. I mean, losing 0-27, dude. I mean, a lot of people at that point, they're like, kind of like what you're wrong with, saying like, hey, maybe we should try something different. But you stuck to it, dude. And because you stuck to it, though, like now you are where you are. You know, like the hard work paid off. But also, too, dude, it's summer, college. And you're coming back, and you go and train, like, what it was like? Was it like sparring, open mat, or what was it with your buddy?
It was a little gym in Exeter. What was the name of the gym? Scott Harper was the owner. Kind of like one of those, no disrespect to Scott Harper, but
It's like a mat on the floor in a building.
No, just like a McDojo.
Oh, okay.
You know, like the dude, you're kind of looking at him like, is this guy really a badass? Because he don't look like he's training too much. You know, like,
And then you got into Elite too, right, in Visalia?
Yeah.
Was
So
that
then,
around that time, or?
No, so that was just, I literally went for a week, like, did some sparring, and like they were ready to throw me in there. And this was back in like 06, 07, 08, something like that. So 08, I think, was my first pro fight. So it was a different era of MMA. Like, there was no amateur MMA.
No,
like,
back then it was way different.
There wasn't any such thing in California, at least. So I was just at Indian casinos, fighting for $300.
Those Tachi fights over
like
there.
people spoke. Like, I remember I was in the back. It was at the Eagle Mountain. This was before, not even Tachi. Tachi was a step up.
Oh shit! Okay.
Eagle Mountain in Porterville was the first place.
Oh.
And we're like in the back in a tent, like warming up or whatever. And there's like a dude in like jorts like mine, and he's smoking a cigarette, and he's up next. Like,
Oh shit!
It was like pretty janky.
It was
It
like
was like those
Street Fighter
Kimbo
shit.
Slice. Remember those
Yeah,
Kimbo
Kimbo
Slice,
Slice,
bro?
yeah.
Those fights, I still watch those to this day.
It was janky. I mean, it was a little bit. It wasn't backyard. You know, it was like
It was regulated. to some extent.
It
To
wasn't
some
state
extent.
athletic commission regulated.
Because I'm not gonna say that.
Back
but-
in the day, if you were on a Native American land, you didn't have to be regulated by the
Oh.
state.
Oh shit.
So that's how they got around it.
So they just
they-
hired Joe Blow as a ref and.
They would hire some of the state athletic commission people,
Mm.
like independently, to come out and run it. You know, like referees,
Yeah,
judges, that kind of stuff. But yeah, it was no insurance, I'm sure, or anything like that. Like,
It's like that Strike Force shit, bro. That was
Yeah,
crazy.
Strike Force. Damn, dude. Okay, so now you're fighting, bro. And what made you fall in love with the MMA? Like, why maybe not stick to just a wrestling thing? Like, what made you fall in love with MMA and adding that extra mixed martial art? You know, the striking part of things.
well, a lot of wrestlers when they graduate from college, like you don't have a lot of options. You know, like, it's not like you can go try to be in the majors. There's no majors for wrestling. So many guys I was wrestled with are fighters to this day. Josh Emmett just fought in the main event last week. He's on a bit of a Josh. It's tough because Josh started fighting at like 34.
Whoa.
He's 30, or maybe earlier than that, maybe like 32. He had his like 30.
Is that possible? Like, is that normal? Because obviously, like they say, most people start young, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, he used to come to my fights at Tachi Palace before he ever had a fight, just as like my buddy, you know, like party
kick back,
afterwards.
yeah.
You know, like we got a couple free hotel rooms, so we'd wreak havoc at the Tachi after the fights, you know, and usually lose the $1,000 we made gambling, you know, like stupid. Like
So the way to do it though, hey, as long as you break even. If you
I
break
put
even sometimes,
$1,000 on red at a casino in Vegas one time. Didn't work out.
Always
Ah.
bet black. Always bet black. Get anything from today.
So anyway, like, yeah, a lot of wrestlers get into mixed martial arts. We were, you know, I had 3 fights before I graduated college, and I usually just did them in the summertime between seasons. And then, but I wasn't really taking it serious. I knew like I'm just gonna go out. I'm gonna try to double leg this dude and beat him up. You know, like
Ground and
thank
pound,
God I didn't run into like a killer right off the bat because they would have just smoked me. And then when I graduated, I moved back here, started subbing, started coaching wrestling, and then I just started training, and then I started taking it serious. Like I didn't know it was gonna lead to like a career per se, but I started learning like jiu-jitsu, started boxing, kickboxing, and like falling in love with. It's what's great about the sport is like there's so much to learn. You know, like I can go and take a freaking taekwondo class. I've never done taekwondo, and like I'm sure I'd have fun learning.
Yeah.
You know, like even if not all of it's applicable, some of it is. You know, and like so I'm always learning, and that's what I love about it. I actually think wrestling's a harder sport than mixed martial arts, only because in wrestling every day you do the same thing.
Yep.
So you're using the same muscles. You're sore, and then you have to use those muscles again the next day, and like it's just a grind. Making weight over and over in college, you know, like week after week, and you're not very smart. You'd go to a tournament and then you'd blow up on Sunday. And you come in Monday, oh, I got 12 pounds to lose by Thursday, you know, and like week after week of that. And so mixed martial arts is cool because like I'm gonna do grappling today, and then tomorrow I'm doing kickboxing. I get to use a different muscle set, different energy system, and so it's to me it's easier. And that's weird to say because you're like, well, you're not punching each other in wrestling,
Yeah.
but.
I've heard that though, bro. I've heard in wrestling the weight cut is just like brutal, especially if you're a couple pounds over. When coming up to the week of the fight, it's just like
They start spitting to try to lose weight.
That's what it is.
Dude,
I
they
saw-
get.
yeah.
Dude, they had. They
carry around the jug. and
gritty,
you
bro.
spit it.
I've heard about some of those baths.
They
too.
don't cut as much weight as MMA does because in MMA we get 24 hours to recover, and they only get 1 hour for a duel and 2 hours for a tournament.
Damn.
So it's not you can't like cut a ton of water and then think you're gonna rehydrate appropriately. Like, so they do cut weight though a lot, and the thing about wrestling is they'd have to do it week after week after week, sometimes multiple times a week. Like if you have a duel on Thursday night and then you have a tournament Friday, Saturday, like, you know, and then you get to college and you're like flying on airplanes to travel, and that adds another element to the weight cut, you know, because you're like you're not in your environment, you can't control all the food you eat or like, you know, things like that, just sodium intake, all those kinds of things.
Airport food only has so much food you can get, right? I mean, they have salads and stuff. But when it comes down to like your stuff you're used to, it's probably a little different.
Like I'm big into avocados, like just eating a half of avocado.
That's
Or
just
like
it,
a-
but like avocado by itself.
Yeah.
Dude, so
Put some
good.
salt on it.
Really? Oh,
Yeah.
that's
So
Any
good.
sauce on it? Do you ever put any sauce on it at all?
You better not go here,
I
bro.
just go half an avocado. I kind of put some Himalayan salt or some kind of salt, and just scoop it out and eat it. If it's like good and like not too
Yeah.
ripe and not too, you know, it's like find the perfect one.
Yeah. Not too mushy. Kind of has a little crunch a little bit. At least. I feel it.
Don't tell me you put ketchup on your avocado, bro.
I mean,
What
so
do you put on
I
it?
swear to
would,
God.
I would. So like,
Ketchup?
I have a big thing with ketchup, bro. That's my thing. Like,
He has a fetish, bro. He has a
You know what
ketchup
ketchup
fetish.
is?
tell me.
Sugar.
So here's the thing. I get the one with 0 sugar though.
Oh, okay.
So there's one.
the worst.
We'll have to pull up something what it is. There's one with no sugar, and it has like a little bit of calories, like 10 calories per tablespoon or something. But it's way less than your average regular Heinz. Heinz is solid, but yeah. I know like the different types. Yeah, we can go down a rabbit hole with ketchup.
You
but-
start counting calories and then you look at sauces, like, oh shit.
I'm not
You
that
realize,
bad.
dude, you know what? I never really realized either for a while until I really look at the bar. I'm a barbecue guy, so you look at the barbecue and you're like, oh shit.
Sweet Baby Ray's, bro, has Sweet Baby Ray's gets you,
One of
bro.
the best ones.
A1.
A1.
Yeah,
Is that low calorie or is it
It's
high
got
calorie?
like 5 calories, 10 calories.
Oh, that's solid, bro. I
Which
can
is
do that.
full of salt. I
Oh,
mean, it's
okay.
super salty. But I have to have like a high sodium diet because I sweat so much.
Yeah.
Like I'm drinking the element teas all the time and putting them in my waters, But yeah, A1's a good. You could like barbecue with it,
With A1.
Damn, I didn't know that.
That's a pro
Yeah,
tip.
you put it on your steak, right? You put it on your steak.
You could, but I'm saying
Burgers.
like if you were to marinate it or something like
little more
some-
flavor.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Instead of like a barbecue sauce with
Yeah.
ton of sugar.
You're getting into all these promotions, dude. When was your first big break? Because I know you got into UFC, 2014, right? And I know that was kind of a tricky situation. We were talking about it in the car. Who was your first opponent, dude? Who was the first opponent, and how did you step into the ring in your first ever UFC match?
The UFC.
Yeah, the first one back in 2014, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think it was a blessing in disguise because I didn't like skyrocket to like 10-0 and have like easy fights and then go to the UFC and kind of get shut like, oh, I'm not at this level. Like I had tough fights that I wasn't ready for coming up and I lost, like I think I was like 12-3, so I'd had some fights where I wasn't ready. I was fighting like a good black belt from Vegas and like I just wasn't ready for him, and so I think some of those like hurdles and like stumbles along the way just to get to the UFC was good for me. And then my first UFC fight was against Aljamain Sterling, who's now the champ.
That's crazy, bro.
Damn.
And he actually, after we fought, he hit me up, and he's from New York, and he came out here and stayed in Visalia for 2 weeks.
Oh, shit.
And we went up and down the state and just kind of hit up a few different gyms. But he trained here in Visalia at Elite Team Visalia. We went to Porterville and trained with Joe Soto. And then we were down south a lot of the time in Huntington, Costa Mesa area. But yeah, he's like, it was weird because he like met my family and stuff, and we like just fought each other like 2 weeks before,
That's like a respect of the sport too. I feel like
I think it was just because we were both came from wrestling. We were both making our UFC debuts the same day.
Because you fought on a 10-day notice, though, right?
Yeah, he took the fight on a little bit longer, but not much. It was like a few weeks. Like so, he had replaced someone else. So there was supposed to be a bantamweight fight. One dude drops off. He gets the call. So he gets plugged in. Then the other dude gets dropped out. So then I get the call. And so, like, it wasn't much time for either of us, So, yeah, we've just kind of stayed in touch ever since. And
whenever you faced him the first time, bro, is there something that he had where you're like, you could sense that he was going to be a champion along the way? Or is it like he developed his game along the way?
I think for Aljamain, he always stayed true to who he was. Like, he was – like, I was a wrestler who fell in love with boxing. Like, if you watch most of my fights now, a lot of the time they're mainly striking. Like, unless I feel the need to mix it up and go takedowns, or if I'm fighting someone who I know, like, hey, I got an advantage on the ground, I'm going to take him down, and that's going to be my game plan. But more often than not, I just like to strike. Whereas Aljamain he knew, like, wrestling and my style of wrestling and how he kind of molds that with his jiu-jitsu. Like, he never, like, strayed from that. And a lot of wrestlers, I feel like they get a lot of pressure to become strikers. Like, if you see two wrestlers, a lot of times it's just like they're standing there and trading punches the whole time and not even utilizing the thing that got them there at all, Yeah. And so I think for him, he just stayed true to himself and got better and better at grappling, got better and better at striking, but he mixes it all up so well. And even though he's not like the best striker per se, like he's able to like use his length, mix it up, and then always transition to his wrestling so much and make strikers, hesitant to strike with him because they're always afraid of the takedown, and it's just he's persistent, and so he's just I learn a lot from him to this day, but I still want to fight him again.
get that rematch, get it ready.
Well, what's your take on that weight class in the UFC right now? All the competition they have a lot of good guys coming up. What's your take on that weight class?
It's turned into like one of the funnest weight classes in the UFC. Yeah. It's just so much depth. Even if you look down the roster, like guys that are ranked 13th, 14th, 15th guys that are unranked. You're like, that dude's not ranked. Like, he's a savage, you know. Like, whereas 5 years ago, 10 years ago, like, you start looking down in the bottom of the ranking. You're like, oh, these guys aren't that good, you know. But now it's like, it's getting
Loaded.
ridiculous, you know. Like, so many good guys, and so yeah, it's fun to watch, you know. There's a lot of fun matchups in the future.
He's fighting O'Malley coming up, right?
Mhm.
What's your official prediction for the Aljamain versus O'Malley?
I mean, obviously, if O'Malley sleeps him, that's possible. And O'Malley's jiu-jitsu is pretty good. He does a lot of competitions. And one thing I'll say about O'Malley is that he doesn't stray away from losing, like outside of MMA. Like, he'll go to jiu-jitsu competitions and put himself in positions where he knows he's likely going to lose. Like, this guy's trains jiu-jitsu 6 days a week. He's on the pro circuit for jiu-jitsu, which is blowing up. No-gi jiu-jitsu is, like, becoming its own industry.
Yeah, I've seen that, yeah.
And he'll put himself in those positions. He'll lose matches, and he takes it. But he knows, like, I'm taking all this knowledge and all these experiences back to what I'm really doing, which is mixed martial arts is my focus. And so I think guys like that who are willing to put themselves in, like, I wish I had done some pro boxing, like, you know, like, just to, even if I wasn't, like, just to do it, you know, to compete, you know. And I did a lot of jiu-jitsu tournaments too, and so O'Malley does have pretty good jiu-jitsu, but I think, yeah, if Aljamain gets a hold of him and gets him down, gets his back,
yeah,
it could be trouble. If I had to put money on it, I'd put money on Aljamain.
I feel like he smothers his opponents, bro.
Yeah,
Especially on the ground. Like, exactly what you said, bro. If he puts
I've
him on his
learned a
back.
lot from him, and I've used a lot of. I've talked to him about he calls it the backpack, the human backpack. If he gets your back, and we're the same height, like, we're relatively the same size. We're big for the weight class. My last fight before I got in the show, I get that back and I get that body triangle, and it's pretty much all she wrote. Like, you're not getting out. Like, we're long.
You're
that
linky,
body triangle is freaking tight too, and it's hard to get off of you. So I picked that up from him, and I started using it because I'm like, dude, we're the same size, like, same length, you know. You do have to be long for it, but. So I started utilizing it too, you know.
I feel like it's different, bro, because your size and your weight class is not really too common, bro. So if you use it to the right way, I mean, it's a big advantage, like you said.
Like with your first fight too, like I was looking at that too. You had the length over that guy and everything too. The reach was like kind of the same, but you utilized that in such a way in that fight. I think that's why you handled it so well. That was a good fight too.
That's the thing about MMA is sometimes you'll see really tall guys that don't use their length, like they've never been taught or learned how to use distance and range, and be in range to be able to punch or kick them, and they're not in range to punch or kick you, and like finding that sweet spot there.
It's a cheat code.
You know?
It's like controlling it. You control the distance of it too.
And so I feel like when I came up in MMA, one of the best things I did was immerse myself in boxing. Like, in the I love the boxing community. The environment in boxing is like blue collar. You like put your head down and get to work. Nobody cares, you know. Like, they don't care what your name is or who you are. And I was always the guy coming into boxing gyms throughout the valley. I'd be in Fresno. I'm going to Dinuba later tonight. Like, there's a lot of little boxing gyms that are pretty good, you know. And I would always be the MMA guy. So I always went in like, these guys are going to take my head off. They're going to try to, you know. So I had to earn respect because I'm not the boxer, you know. And so I feel like that helped me a lot with develop boxing, that other MMA guys who just do MMA and they only train with other MMA guys, like, they might miss, you know. I think I love boxing. Like, if I could go back to being 15, I think I'd become a boxer. Like,
That's why you're out here too right now. You're training for boxing, correct? Out here in Visalia?
Yeah, my boxing coach, he's still my boxing coach even though we don't live. We still try to train together pretty consistently. Eloy Garza, Garza Boxing. He just does it out of his garage. He's got a nice house over on the northwest side of town. He's got a 3-car garage. He's turned into a gym. And he just has classes in there at night. He's a full-time English teacher out in Lindsay, I think. Lindsay? One of those smaller communities out that way. And so, yeah, he's a badass boxing coach.
That's dope, dude.
That's sick, bro. You just open up the garage, go to work, and just beat the shit out of each
like,
other.
why don't you open a gym and all that? He's like, I love doing this, and I'm a teacher. You know, I've got 3 kids and a wife, and, like, I got my life. Like, I don't want to be, like, so busy with, like, running a gym unless it's going to be his primary source of income, you know, like, so it's perfect for him and good for me.
He does it for the love of the sport, really. Yeah.
There's just something out of training out of the garage, though, right? I mean, opening up the garage, beating the shit out of each other in the garage is something like a little different of a feeling.
That's what you guys used to do when you guys lived together, right?
Actually, different.
We did, yeah, a little bit. So, oh God, sorry.
No, go ahead, bro.
So yeah, so obviously we're gonna get to the Ultimate Fighter, a lot of the stuff you got going on coming up. But I want to take it back to your UFC career and how that went and how that progressed. I know obviously Danny mentioned in the beginning you've been hit with a lot of adversity and a lot of challenges your way, bro. So talk a little bit about your UFC career. I know obviously it didn't go the way you wanted it to go in the beginning, and how you bounced back, bro. Because bouncing back, you're out of the UFC for about 8 years. Now to fast forward where you are now. It's overcoming, bro. Like, it's a story of overcoming constant obstacles. So I want to take it back to UFC career and how you overcame some of those obstacles.
Yeah, so I lost a close fight, but I lost to Aljamain by decision. And then my next fight was against a guy named Johnny Bedford out of Texas, and he was a heavy-handed dude. And I fought him in San Antonio, and he hit me with a liver shot like the first 30 seconds of the fight, and I go reeling back, like trying to protect my gut. And he came flying in with like a flying knee, and missed. And I just came over the top with the right hand, and I dropped him. His head like bounced off the canvas. Like, he was out, clearly, but he woke up like immediately. So the ref like jumped in, and then like I'm like looking at the ref because you can't jump in and stop a fight and then take your hand out and be like, never mind, keep fighting. He's awake now. It was just a weird finish, you know. And so I won the fight technically by TKO. But, like, it was kind of like, I don't know. There was just too much controversy around it. And so, like, it almost felt like you couldn't celebrate. Even though I won the fight. Like, I hit the dude. He went out. He woke up. Like,
Yeah.
It is what it is.
Dude,
The
those
referees
finishers are
make
so
quick
weird, bro.
decisions, you know? And it was just a weird finish, the way that the ref, like, went in and out. And so, like, it kind of, like, I don't know. I just felt like I didn't really get my first UFC win. You know, like, even though I did, like, it's just like,
I saw a little
that pride.
hesitation too. Like, I watched it, that fight, and you had the hesitation. Then you saw him get up, and you're like, you did your little jump around too.
Yeah.
That little hesitation, like, oh, you saw him wake up. And
Well,
you saw
because
him
that's
jump
weird,
in.
bro. Because as a ref, it's so hard to judge. You see the guy, his lights are off. He bounces on, and then his lights are back on, and you're already ready to stop. Because obviously, when they're out, you don't want to. You're gonna jump in and just keep beating the shit out of them. So the ref doesn't want that. So it's just weird, bro. It was that clip that it was like really.
yeah, it was just kind of, I mean, I see both perspectives,
Yeah.
you know? So it's like, it's like
win's
I
a win.
understand it, but it definitely left me like, I don't really count it, you know? And so then I fought Manny Gambarian, an Armenian dude from Hollywood, who was on the Ultimate Fighter years ago. He actually made the finals against Nate Diaz. He fought Nate Diaz in the finals. Little like bowling ball of an Armenian. Like, that's pretty much how you describe him. He's like 5'5" and like as wide as he is tall, like, and just like he had fought at 55s for most of his career, and then he dropped to 45s for a while, and then this was his first fight at 35s. So I still had a size advantage as far as like length and height, and I dropped him like 2 or 3 times in the fight, and it was pretty much just keeping him at length and like outstriking him. He couldn't take me down. I was like, all right, this is going perfectly. The first, round dominated, and then the second round was dominating again, and then the very end of the second round, we get in like a scramble, and he catches a guillotine, and I tapped with 2 seconds left on the clock.
I saw that too. You said you were kind of going to sleep at
I
that
was
time,
going
so
to
you
sleep,
didn't know, huh?
but I mean, I don't know what would happen. Like, it's always one of those things when you tap, you like look back and like, I shouldn't have, But like in the gym, and it's always different too, because you're in the gym and you're like, man, I don't tap unless I'm like, the window's closing. I've gone to sleep several times in the gym because I just, didn't want to. Just stubborn, stubborn, thinking I could breathe okay, and the next thing you know, you're waking up and your coach is holding your feet up in the air, So, yeah, I got tapped in that fight, and then my last fight in the UFC was against a tough dude. He was 22-1 when I fought him. He was a Brazilian, and I fought him in Brazil, and it was a close fight. Some people thought I won, other people thought I lost, but it's hard to win a decision in Brazil against a Brazilian unless you dominate.
Yeah.
And so I lost a decision down there, and then I was cut. So for me, like 8 years was a long time, but I don't know. I guess I never really thought about it. Like I was fighting because I love to fight. I was hoping to get back to the UFC, but if I didn't, I don't know. My wife talks about that, like, because you're only fighting on the regional scene for like a couple $1,000, like, and the amount of time and energy to prepare yourself for a fight, it doesn't add up. Like, especially once you have kids and a family and you have a full-time job, and you're like, the amount of time I'm spending out, away from my family. Essentially, that's what family time is outside of work. I'm taking time out of that to train for a fight that I'm making $3,000 if I win. Like, but I did that, for 8 years, and my wife is supportive, and I always kind of go back to her because she could have been like, hey, you're not making, 6-figure checks. Like, you shouldn't be doing this, And so I just always had a thought in my head, like there's going to be a purpose, like it's not for this $3,000, it's for what's coming after that, like you're going to put in this work and keep getting better and keep training. And, there were several times I wanted to quit. I retired for about 1.5 years at one point. I was like, this isn't worth it anymore. I have a kid now, and I can't do it. And then you just get, I don't know, there's an itch.
Keep pushing, huh?
And then you just keep going, and then it's crazy how it worked out. I didn't think I was ever going to go back in the UFC. I'm 35. Like, if you look at, like, the Contender Series, which is what they predominantly bring in, that's how they bring guys in.
Mm-hmm.
They're all 21-year-olds
Young.
with, like, shiny records. Like, oh, he's 8-0. He hasn't fought anybody, but he's 8-0. And like that's who they're going for. And so for me, I was like, dude, I don't know if the UFC is ever gonna come calling again. And then they did. So it was crazy.
Yeah. Do you want to get into that a little bit, like about how they hit you back up, about getting back into it?
Yeah, they hit me up on Instagram.
So how did this go down? This slid in the DMs?
Yeah, literally.
Changing times.
Like, well, I was transitioning management companies. I was leaving my old manager, and I had signed with a new one. New agency, and so I didn't have it on my Instagram because I was like literally in the process of doing it.
Oh, gotcha.
Like, getting out of this contract and getting things squared away with money, and like, okay, we're square, okay, and then going over to this dude and this agency, and so I didn't really have management there for like a month, and so they were like, hey, we don't know who to contact, we don't know who's managing you. Jason House was the guy I was with at Iridium, and he was like, he says you're not with him anymore. I was like, yeah, I'm not. And then so that's how it started.
Dang, that's crazy. So UFC literally shot their shot with you, just slid all up in the DMs like that. That's crazy. That lets you guys know, like, all you got to do is slide in the DMs sometimes.
Well, I thought at first, like, when you get DMs, like, you don't.
It's kind of
like,
fishy, bro.
Yeah, it's like,
Yeah.
is this really?
Like, yeah, you don't know if it's bullshit, And
Probably sent
like,
you a link to sign the contract.
What did
I
it
don't
say?
click
Like,
the link.
hey, this is so-and-so from the UFC.
Yeah, pretty much. It was just like, I'm a producer for the Ultimate Fighter. We're going to do a season with veterans at your weight, and we're interested in interviewing you for the position. And then I hit up my new manager. I was like, hey, see if this is for real. And then he came back and was like, yeah, it's for real. And then we set it up. And then they actually told me I didn't make it on the show after I interviewed with them. And then so I was like,
Just
dude.
up and down, like the you know what I mean? Just having to come over all these obstacles too.
And I was almost on the Ultimate Fighter years ago. I gone to Vegas to the tryouts. They used to do tryouts, and there
Like
were like
open tryouts, or you had to
open
get it?
tryouts. And so there were like 300 or 400 bantamweights
Oh,
from
shit.
all over the world.
Damn.
Like literally dudes from Ireland, like all over the world in Vegas for these tryouts. And you're in this giant room at a casino, and you're just waiting your turn, getting your number. You have to grapple. They just pair you, and then they have you grapple in front of like Dana and everybody, and then they're like scoring you and shit. And then if you make it through that, then you have to go hit pads, and they watch you hit pads. And then if you make it through that round, then they interview you. And then if you make it through that, they keep you in Vegas for a week and do medicals, and then they send you home. And so I went through that whole process. It was like whittled it down. Every round they're like calling the names. It's like, think about back to like high school. If you made the team, your name's on the list, And made it through the whole thing. And then they sent us home after the week of medicals, and they said, okay, filming's gonna start in, I don't remember, 4 weeks, 5 weeks, whatever it was. But some of the fighters that were there for the week, we kind of realized like there's like 12 or 13 of us here, and I'm pretty sure there's only 8 guys on the show. So we kind of had suspicions that maybe some of us were like alternates if someone doesn't pass medicals or gets injured or falls out like with an injury in the show, they'll bring in an alternate. And so sure enough, I was sitting in Mount Whitney subbing, and I get a text from a random 702 Vegas number, and they were like, oh, you didn't make it. And I was like,
damn.
This was before I was ever in the UFC. It was my first tryout, to get in.
What year was this about?
It was before the UFC, so
2012, 2013.
yeah, like 2012, 2013, I'd say.
Yeah.
And so it kind of came full circle for me to then have an opportunity. I mean, when you're 35, you don't think I'm going on the Ultimate Fighter.
Yeah,
So it was kind of crazy.
So it's been a roller coaster this whole way, then ups and downs and ups and downs.
Yeah, and then they told me I didn't make it on the show, and I was like pissed. I was pissed because I was like, there's not a bantamweight in America who has my resume that's not in the UFC or signed to Bellator. Like there isn't one.
Yeah.
Like they don't exist. So I was pissed. Like I was legitimately pissed. Like because they got my hopes up, you know. But I was
For a
still,
second time in a row, bro. That's,
yeah.
Did
And
that
then-
put like that chip on the shoulder for you going
Yeah.
into the show once you came back?
And so much of it's like producers make those decisions. Like
Oh,
the
got
UFC
you.
will say like, here's a crop of 20 guys, and any of these guys are good to be on the show. And then the producers are like, what kind of characters do we want on the show? And so that I think the first time and maybe the second time too, for whatever reason, I wasn't the character they wanted, and so.
So it wasn't even really about talent at that point. They kind of want that person that fits
It's for the
that.
show.
Yeah, they want that showman. They want like that McGregor style guy, kind of.
Maybe, yeah, I don't know. But then they called back like a week later and were like, never mind, you're on the show. Pack your bag.
He's like, fuck it, let's go.
at that point, it's almost like you want to tell them, like, I'll think about it. But then it's like, nah, I have to go.
Did that change your mindset going into it? So like going into the show, knowing you're going back on there, did that change like that chip on that shoulder, like how you went in there, like, all right, this is just purely business. I'm not fucking around, or?
Well, what was funny was, so then, okay, you're on the show. So then pack your bags. I got to talk to my boss. Hey, I got to leave for 6 weeks
Oh shit.
during the school year.
And the boss was like, all right, that's fine, or?
Well, yeah. I mean, he was super supportive. I was like, how do I do this with HR? You know, so I had to go unpaid, you know, for the time I was gone. And but he was cool. I had to get it all squared away with my wife, and like, how are we gonna do drop-offs with the kids? Because she has a job, you know, and like we kind of split some of those responsibilities. And so all those little things in life you got to figure out. And then we get to Vegas, and we're stuck in a hotel for 2 weeks, isolated.
Oh,
I think
shit.
they do it on purpose to mess with you.
Mindful.
Oh,
your
yeah,
mind.
that's your mindset.
Because you're in a room by yourself in Vegas, just a random like Hilton type of hotel near the airport, not like the Strip or anything, you know. And you don't have a key card to get in and out of your room.
Oh, so you're stuck in there.
You're stuck in your room, and you get to work out twice a day for 1 hour, roughly 1 hour increments. And you could decide on whether it's the gym, the hotel gym, the swimming pool, or road work, just go on a run.
Oh
In
shit.
Vegas. And so that's all you do. And then the first few days were cool because, not cool, but at least you were busy because you're doing medicals. And so you had appointments and stuff. So there was kind of your day was
You were getting,
you were
you were
doing
kind of
stuff.
getting out of there, yeah.
And then after like the first 4 days, we were supposed to start filming the next week. And they said, oh, Conor schedule's not, you know, it was really the Conor McGregor show.
Yeah.
He was running the show. And his schedule dictated our schedule.
Oh shit.
And so they were like, hey, he can't be here by Monday, so we're pushing it back a week.
Damn.
So then we were just stuck in that hotel for another week. And same
like-
thing. And then the medicals ended because we were done. And then you were literally just in your room. And it was pretty like,
Kind of like personally, like you're in the hole. You're solitary
I'd
confinement.
be like looking through my peephole. Like, if you know, just like trying
the
to find
camera
it.
out there.
You know, like, it
Did
was,
you have a phone at that time at all? or
they did let us
Okay.
keep our phones.
Did they feed you guys good at least?
Yeah, they had a bunch of like healthy Vegas like restaurants.
That's cool. Okay.
Like protein shops and stuff like that, you know,
Oh,
and
that's
like so we got to choose some pretty good food. And then we had meal preps too. The second week we did meal preps, so
Oh,
they
there
had
we
a
go.
meal prep company come in, and we were all cutting weight. I logged 90 miles of
Damn.
running.
Damn.
Jesus Christ. I've
Just
probably done that
because-
like my whole life.
Well,
That's
one-
like my whole life of running.
I'm not
Well,
there
we
yet.
didn't- I only knew about the show 2 weeks before we left.
Oh yeah, makes
So
sense.
I hadn't had a full like training camp. I was 160 pounds, you know.
Oh
like,
shit.
so just getting my weight down to where it's in range
Back
to make
to-
a cut,
mhm.
you know. And so that was why I was running so much, you know, just like I'm gonna get down.
So you chose, I'm gonna do the running portion of what you get, yeah.
And I would just I just need to be outside, you know, like screw
Need
the
the sun,
hotel
dude.
gym.
Yeah, you want to get sunlight. You
Yeah.
wanna,
So I was just going outside a lot. And then on top of that, same thing as the first time I was trying to get on the show. We all knew there were more of us than were going to be on the show. But this time we were in Vegas, and they just started cutting dudes. There's one dude, and I don't want to say his name, but
so and so.
he was my next door neighbor.
Uh-huh.
And I'm sitting in my room like I always was, and we're coming on the end of second week, and they're starting to cut people. And I hear his door, get someone knock on his door. He opens it. I can't hear, but there's a conversation that's had, and then you just hear, "Fuck this!" And he like gets pissed.
How long was he there before he got cut?
2 weeks.
Yeah,
2
that's
weeks of that prison and just like, all right, bye.
Yeah.
See you later.
You don't make it.
Damn.
And so we were all on eggshells until we were like in the van, like leaving for the Apex to start filming. Like, we didn't know up until that moment if we were going to be on the show. And then McGregor brought in a bunch of his Irish dudes. And so a couple of guys that were going to be on the show last minute got cut so a part of his clause was I get to bring in X and Y, these guys.
Damn.
And so, yeah, there's a couple dudes I knew that didn't get on and I was really bummed for, So it was pretty, just a mind trip, and like ups and downs of what's going to, like I remember having my last conversation with my phone before they took it. And I was talking to my wife and I was like, if you don't hear from me, that means I made it on. If I call you back in an hour, I'm probably going to be pissed off.
I'm probably going to be pissed off.
So it worked out, but yeah, it was pretty nerve-wracking,
Dude, 2 weeks, you don't know if you're on until you get on the fucking van to go to
Especially
the
the no card, like not being able to leave your home. That mess with your mental,
Literally
bro.
prison.
Like, that's a lot.
I started putting a little thing in the door just to walk around.
Oh, you had
Like,
to.
Oh, shit.
Oh,
that way it
okay.
doesn't
I would
close
just
up.
put the thing in the door, and then I would just like walk around the hotel. I would go down to the lobby and just like walk around just to like get out of the room.
Keep that sanity a little bit, huh?
Like, it was
I would go
rough.
legit insane in there.
It
So-
was kind of like that.
So after seeing how it was with the whole McGregor show and everything, did it like change how you like viewed him or anything, or how do you feel about it now?
So I knew Connor. We fought on the same card at UFC 170 in Vegas, and it was his first big fight. Like, I think he was 3-0 at the time in the UFC. He kind of had a lot of hype around him, but this was his first main card pay-per-view. He was fighting Dustin Poirier, their first fight.
Oh shit, their first one.
And it was on the main card, but it wasn't a main event or anything. He wasn't that big yet. And so we were fighting at it was either the Mandalay Bay or the MGM, because I fought at both places. And the entire place, the entire casino, hotel, everything was nothing but Irish people.
Oh
Like,
shit.
they literally took over Vegas.
Whoa.
And you know how, like, I don't know if you guys have been to Europe, but like when you go to like a football match in Europe and they're like chant down the streets and like they're fans.
The whole city.
It's like a big thing, they're in bars like fucking hollering and drinking beer and like they're rowdy,
that brought the whole culture.
That environment was the MGM or Mandalay Bay. I can't remember which one it was at, but it was that environment in the casino.
Oh
Like
shit.
they were running up and down the
floor?
the floors. Well, it was a casino, so there's restaurants and casino, and like and they were just like nothing but Irish people chanting, and that was when I was like sitting back, like, dude, I don't think this guy's the same as us. Like,
This is a lot different, huh?
I think he's got a little more hype or a little more support. He's a little bigger than we think. Like,
That's when you kind of knew he had that star quality about him.
and that was the moment. And we had the same manager, actually, Audi Attar from Paradigm Sports Management in Irvine, California, and he's still with Audi. And so I knew him a little bit and seen him around, but I was never a big fan of it. Like, I was a fan of his fighting, but not really his antics. Some of them,
Yeah.
And so, to each their own, but he just wasn't my cup of tea, So I wasn't really like, I don't know.
So were you kind of glad that you got paired up with Michael Chandler? Because for me, I love Michael Chandler. I love how humble he is, how he's transparent, the things he says. Like, to me, he preaches basically. Like, I love what he's about. Did you feel like you were kind of like meant to be paired up with him? And then how was that being paired up with him?
When I went on the show, my mentality was I'm here to fight. Don't let any of this other stuff get in your way. Don't get caught up in the glitz and the glamour and the cameras and the interviews and all the shit.
Part of being a veteran, right?
Like stay true to what are you here to do? You're here to fight 2 fights, win those fights to make the finals, and then go win the finals at the finale. Like, that's it. Everything else is secondary. And so that was my mentality. And so my mentality was I didn't care what team I was on. Like, I was like, I don't care. I'm here to fight. Like, that's it. At the end of the day, they're going to lock that door, and I'm going to get in that cage, and that's what's going to happen. So
Exactly.
I kept telling myself and writing in my little journal, control what you can control. Let the rest roll off because you can't control it. And so at first I didn't care. Like, I don't care. And then in retrospect, yeah, I'm glad I was on Chandler's team.
I feel like you guys were meant to pair up too.
Yeah.
Because I think after that first fight, one of the main things that I saw that he talked about when you went up to him, you guys touched hands, whatever, and then he talked about the confidence of it. Do you feel like him and his team helped you with that confidence a little bit?
Yeah, I think what's weird is I've been in the UFC, been fighting for 15, 16 years. I fought world champions, title challengers, top 10 guys. Like, I've fought a lot of dudes. But I've always struggled with confidence, even with all that. And I still struggle with confidence,
I feel like,
And,
something we all do kind of, yeah.
And so, like, for him, and I don't train at a gym with, like, 50 UFC fighters. I'm not at one of these giant gyms. So, for me, like, not only being able to train alongside other competitors that are in the UFC level, but also having coaches like Chandler and Ryan Bader and Robert Drysdale and these guys that are all super top of their class, like people, and they're having confidence in you. Like, I don't know, that helped me for sure. You
Feeds
know?
off you a little bit, huh?
Walk On is his brand.
That's his?
This is his brand, Walk On, and it's the term Walk On means, so when he was coming out of high school, he didn't get a scholarship to go wrestle, and so he walked on to the Missouri wrestling team, and then he became like a badass All-American for him. And so his whole thing is like the mentality of walk on, like that walk on mentality. Like, I'm not like the blue chip prospect dude. I'm like the walk on, and like having that mentality, even if you are the blue chip prospect dude. But you know what I mean? Just always that mentality, and I try to keep that too.
You know, you have to have like, because the other people, you know, they get like, they want you to be there. They pay for the scholarships for the walk on though. Like, it's not guaranteed. You have to go in there. You have to prove it to yourself. You know what I mean? So yeah, that's dope. That mentality of that is something way different too, because you never know if you're gonna make the team, but you have to go in there with that chip on your shoulder and really put it all in for it.
You got to prove it, yeah. And so I don't know, that attitude of like, put your head down, blue collar, work. You know, nothing's given to you. Like, everything's earned. There's gonna be no handouts. You know, and like that mentality, I think, is something that resonates with me. And so, yeah, I don't know. It worked out. We fit well together, you know.
Well, you guys are doing pretty good. I mean, your team's 5-0 right now, so obviously he's doing something good. So.
And everybody on the internet's like, "Oh, this isn't a surprise. No wonder you got veterans fighting prospects." But at the end of the day, like, what happens when you get signed to the UFC? You get a fight. They schedule you for a fight, most likely with someone who has already had UFC fights.
Yeah, exactly.
So every entry UFC guy is fighting a veteran of the UFC. You know what I mean? So it's like,
I just feel like
if these guys are ready, then they should be able to compete and beat some of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it shouldn't even matter. I just feel like Chandler's more of like a leader, though. You know what I mean? I feel like he's just not necessarily better at motivating, but he has that. Like that, he's just naturally a dad. Like, he can lead someone in there, give them what they need to know, and like that's why I like him personally. I watch this shit every day. I'm not gonna lie to you guys.
What I really liked about his coaching style was we had a morning practice that was a team practice, and then our evening practice was individual. So if you wanted to go work wall work with Drysdale or ground game stuff, or you wanted to go hit mitts, or you wanted to do a conditioning workout because you were fighting, you know, maybe sooner or whatever you wanted to do, the coaches were all at little stations, and you can go and pick their brain, or you can go and do that, you know. If you wanted to have a lighter workout because your fight's coming up and maybe you don't need to be putting in, like, pushing your body, you know, it might be on the kind of getting yourself ready for the fight mode, you know. So I like that he, like, listened to us, and it wasn't just like, this is the way we're doing it, and this is, you're either going to like it or not, you know. It was very, like, catered to our needs, and it almost made you feel like you were a prima donna a little bit, you know. Like, he gave me a full rub down massage, for 60 minutes.
Damn,
he's a Chandler.
A whole hour?
I'm like, dude,
Was it good?
Dude, it was legit.
He's just built, bro. Chandler's built. So
Nate's like, bro, that's my dream, bro, to get rubbed down by
Michael Chandler, bro. Like, I feel like
it was cool, man. He was like, we used to do this in Missouri on Fridays after the practice. You pick a partner and you guys give each other a quick massage. I was like, hey.
He's like, I'm down for it. I get 60 minutes of this.
I'm not complaining.
How'd you feel about the rankings, though? How they put you at 4, then you were going against number 1. He's a prospect. Did that put a chip on your shoulder, too?
When they told us how it was going to work, and they were like, all right, you're going to go do a workout with your coach, and then they're going to seed you 1 through 4, and then those seedings will determine our matchups. So if 1s will face 4s and all that, you know. And Chandler told us, I'm not going to do seedings. He was like, I have matchups that I like.
So he went matchup based.
And if I have a decision, like if, say, McGregor says, next I'm calling up my number 3 lightweight. And so that would mean the number whatever lightweight from the other team is going to fight him. He would base his decision in the moment on what matchups he liked.
Who he thought would be better. So, okay. So
that was what he told us. And I think he told us 2 reasons I think he did that. 1, there might have been actual strategy there. Like, I like matchups, and if I have opportunities to put matchups together I like, I'm going to do that.
Which makes more sense anyways.
But 2, he might have also been like, I don't want to mess these guys' minds up.
By putting a ranking
you're the
on
4th seed. Means I don't think you're as good as this guy. And then, like, what does that do to a guy who's about to fight?
That
Michael
might fuck
Chandler's
you.
telling him that, you know? Like, So I think and how much of it was true or how much of it wasn't, I don't know.
Well, the
But it
shit
worked.
worked though. The shit worked, bro. I mean,
Hey.
you got the highlight reel, Sports Center.
I had a new chip on my shoulder when they seeded me 4th. Even though he told us
That's
that.
what I was
It
thinking.
Still bothered
That's
me.
what I wanted to know. Cause I was like, dude, that's like their number one guy, and
Yeah.
he kind of seemed like a little dickhead or whatever. But then you came in there and handled that shit, bro. Like,
Mondo was a
damn.
good dude. Likes to talk a lot, but he's a really good
that's
dude.
a part of it, though. That's a part of it, though.
And he's a hustler, man. He's actually a pretty famous barber.
I seen that. He
Yeah.
cut up, yeah.
He cut McGregor's hair, but he's cut like a bunch of NFL players' hair.
Oh shit.
And he's a Michigan-based dude, so he does a lot of like he's almost like a celebrity barber dude over there.
Got you. Oh, that's
And
dope.
he's a good dude. I like him. I told him at the end of the show, I was like, you're gonna be successful in life. You have the mentality of being successful. Like he got jacked up in that fight. He
Yeah.
tore a part of his eye.
God damn.
He didn't tear the retina, thank God, because that's like a career ender for most of the time. But he tore something in his orbital wall or something, and had cuts and stuff. That dude was on the treadmill the next day trying to get his weight down.
Damn.
Because he said, if someone drops off, maybe I can get back on. And I was like, I'm sitting there, I'm like, hey, bro, I don't know if you understand how the athletic commissions work, but you ain't fighting again in the next couple weeks.
But that mentality, though,
But that
of being
mentality,
ready, yeah.
like
being ready.
like his mentality was anything could happen.
Mhm.
He told me straight up, he was like, I think we're still gonna meet in the finals. Like he surprised me, and he definitely like earned my respect in the house. Not his like blah blah blah,
But how
like,
he is
his
a
ethic, his
fighter.
work
and-
ethic.
like that
And
work
his
ethic.
drive.
I was like, all right, you're gonna be successful. You know, maybe not today, but it might be tomorrow. But
He's up, maybe not today.
Yeah.
I know his cheek was all cut. Yeah, man, you
Yeah.
put in work on him. I was like, damn.
that was a good shot.
What goes to your
Beautiful. That was a
head, bro,
beautiful
after that
shot.
first win? So after that first fight you win, what goes to your head? Like as soon as they called it off, referee steps in. What's going through your head?
I was worried about the fight. I mean, I respected his skills. He's a good really good jiu-jitsu. And so I was like, all right, I have a tough fight in front of me. He was our number 1 seed, I think, for a reason, you know? So, yeah, I think there was one thing that McGregor said, and most of the time that guy talks, I'm just like, I have no idea what you just said, dude. Not only because of the language barrier, but also, like, you're just ranting, and I don't even understand what you're saying.
He's like, is he?
But every now and then he'll like say something that like hits, you know. And he said, Mondo actually on that episode asked him, "What do you think about before you get in the cage? Like when you're in the back, what goes through your head?" And you could tell he struggled to answer that question because it is a difficult question to answer because every fight's different. There's fights I've been too relaxed, like, dude, I need to wake up, man. I'm about to go fight. I don't know why I'm so chill. And there's fights I've been overly nervous where I'm like, why am I so nervous? You know. And one of the things he said was like, you're going to have different emotions. One thing to always take into account is that in the other locker room, the same exact thing's happening. So don't think you're alone. Everybody's going through these things. And 2, whatever the emotions you're having are, let them be. That's what it's supposed to be. Whatever the emotion is. Don't in your mind be like, why am I so chill right now? I should be more amped, and have negative thoughts. Or don't be like, why am I so nervous right now? I've got knots in my stomach. And have negative thoughts. This must not be going good. You know what I mean? So whatever the emotion you're having is the emotion you're supposed to be having, and just let that ride with it and be like, this is what's supposed to be, and you're getting in the cage no matter what. Like,
Just don't fight it. Go with the flow.
but there's been several times I've walked to the cage and been like, why the hell do I do this? Like just the amount of nerves, you know, and you're like, why do I do this? I'm never doing this again.
Does it change once
Yeah.
you get in that ring?
Then
though?
after you're like,
Yeah.
book
That
door
the next
closes.
fight.
Well, once the fight starts, then you get slapped around a little bit.
You're
you
like,
know?
fuck it, we're in here now.
We're
You
in a
have
fight.
That's important, though, bro. I feel like that's something. I mean, people watching at home, you guys can use at home as well, right? I mean, even for this podcast, I know driving here. To be honest, we were like playing motivational music. We're like trying to pump ourselves. We're like, fuck, we got Cody Gibson on today. We got to pump ourselves up. But like, it's that nerves, bro. But if, like you said, if we use it, we just welcome whatever feelings come that day and kind of just roll with it. I mean, that's solid.
I thought
man.
that was interesting. That stuck with me. Like, I'm going to start thinking more like that. Don't let negative thoughts come in your mind in the back. Be constantly like, this is what it's supposed to feel like, because it is feeling like that, you know, whether you like it or not.
Yeah.
So I like that mentality. I thought that was cool.
Yeah,
That's pretty
because
real.
really,
That's
it's
a
real
gem.
easy, bro. Whenever you have nerves, I feel like to think super negative. Like,
Mhm.
am I supposed to be here? Am I doing something right? Am I doing something wrong? Should I not be here? You know, there's so many thoughts that come with
Imposter
nerves.
syndrome.
Yeah.
We all fight with that shit.
Did you ever get that while being on the show, bro? The imposter syndrome of growing up in a small town like Visalia, Central Valley, going all the way to Las Vegas, being on TV, all these big lights and stuff?
I'm just a regular guy. I think the fact that I'm still a teacher, like still got a day job, still drop my kids off at daycare like everybody else,
Yeah.
like
That's cool.
I
Dude.
still just train with my guys at the gym. Like, I don't know.
We had the passion for it too. Like you said, you were like in wrestling, you're like, damn, I went 0-27.
Yeah.
You're more there for like the passion of it and the love
The
of
growth,
it too.
like it's made me into the person I am. Like fighting has molded me and it's like forged me, and so, yeah, for me, like it's more about that than anything, At the end of the day, you want to be able to like hang your hat and be like, this is how far I got. I was ranked number 7 in the world at one point, or whatever the highest point you get, whatever that is, I want to find that, and so if that's number 1, then that's awesome. But if that's number 6, I'm going to hang my hat sooner than later from doing this because I'm 35, almost 36, and wherever I land, like I'll be fine with, because I know like you put in the work, you changed, you learned about discipline. Like, I wasn't disciplined at 21, 22, like, not like I am now. My wife's, like, the one who tells me all the time, like, you're so much more disciplined with your diet. You're so much more disciplined with recovery, with vitamins you take. Like, everything's not always dialed in, but you try to be dialed in all the time. And so, I don't know. I'd like to think that I could take the lessons you learn in it and apply them to other avenues of life, like, whatever you're into. Whether you're doing a podcast, you're opening a gym, like, you have that mentality, the discipline. I always talk about discipline over motivation,
All
like
the
that,
time.
That
yep.
resonates with me so much.
You're not going to always be motivated, yeah.
Because you do have, like, ups and downs of motivation. I've had fights I've gotten that I wasn't excited about. Like, this guy's, I'm not really excited. Like, beating him doesn't really do much for me. I guess it gives me a few grand, keeps me busy, but I don't really like this fight. I want a tougher fight. I want a bigger name. And so you don't have motivation. So, like, okay, if I don't have motivation, I got to rely on something else to get my ass to the gym at 5 in the morning or whatever, And so, I don't know. That lesson to me, discipline over motivation, like, I don't know. It's always resonated with me.
No, 100%. And that's one thing that, like you said, too, with your age. I turned 30 this year. Damn, I'm old. But I turned 30 this year, and I feel like it just switched over this year where everything's different, more dialed in. My kid's 3 now. She's having sentences coming out. So it's like, and then taking that discipline and that, like you said, every aspect of your life, and then teaching it to my kid and trying to pass it on. That's been something really big for me this year too. And I feel like that's what I'm seeing the most benefits out of everything else. I'm reaping what I sow now because of that. And so it helped me out a lot too, because in my 20s I was not disciplined at all. You know what I mean? Like, I was like your cousins when we're going deep sea. Like, I'm still drinking. Like, I'm not even thinking about tomorrow. So
Yeah.
that's definitely one of the things too I've been focused on this year too, is just that not even worried about motivation, just getting that discipline and keeping going.
Because your motivation is going to go up and down, Sometimes you're going to be very motivated, and other times you're not going to be motivated at all. And so you have to build traits and habits. We were talking about energy drinks earlier, and we were talking about I try not to drink energy drinks. I know they're not good for you. Even the 0-cal ones, they're just not
That's
good.
what gets me, bro. Because I see 0 calories,
Yeah.
0 sugar, and I told this guy,
Yeah.
I was like, bro, they're good. Like, I'm doing good.
Celsius,
But-
boy.
Yeah, Celsius, they used to sponsor me back before they
Did
were
they?
before they were
They're
big.
big. Dude, I
Dude,
drink
I used
like
to get
3 Celsius a
pallets.
day.
Oh,
Did you?
Yeah.
Dude, they're so fucking good though.
They are good.
I have like 3 a day. It's bad.
But
Damn.
it's a habit, right? If I find
100%.
myself, if I buy an energy drink, I get off work, I'm going to the gym, and I go get one for that 4 p.m. pickup before the night training, then I find myself doing it again the next day, and then I'm like, have to stop after 4 or 5 days. Like, I need to break this habit because it's getting become a habit. And then the same thing is with work ethic. If you build habits, positive habits, the same as negative habits, drinking, energy drinks, whatever. Like, just build a shit ton of positive ones.
And every day, I like to do this thing on the calendar where like I'll do a dot and I'll just keep that line going. So if I go to the gym or I do running, right? Fucking hate running. I'll keep that line going. Whenever I don't do it, I break that line. And then I get down on myself because I didn't keep it going. So I'll start it again. And my goal though is to keep that line going across as long as I can.
Yeah.
And it might be running, or it might be, just studying, or even like learning something new. But I like to do that to keep that consistency going. And like you said, that discipline on doing the shit that you don't necessarily want to do all the time, but it's going to benefit you in the long run.
And I think on top of that, like, how do you say this? I used to write my fight camps, like my schedule, at the beginning of the camp, and I had to stick to that schedule. Like, no matter how I felt, no matter if I was injured, if I have it written down that I have a jiu-jitsu I'm going to at 6 o'clock,
You're doing it.
I'm going. Like, and if you fumble, or if something comes up, or life happens and like you can't do a workout that's on your schedule, like I would just mind screw myself. Like, oh, I'm not putting in the work. I'm a loser. I'm not, and then like, and so I think you find like discipline is like you're gonna do it. Like it's not a question of whether I'm feeling great or not, but you also have to listen to your body and have to know like
when to take that pause.
Is doing a workout that I can only put in 50-60% on because I'm hurt or tired or sore or whatever worth it, or maybe skipping that one so I can put in 100% in the night train. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, knowing when. Yeah,
and
knowing.
I think that just came with years of doing it,
That's true, yeah.
My wife helps me a lot with that. Like, don't beat yourself up all the time if, like, you're feeling a certain way, like, and it's better to rest. Like, that's a part of your training. And I think learning that rest and recovery were a part of my training regimen.
Just as important.
Just as important as the training. And if that wasn't dialed in, then no matter how much I train, it don't matter. Like, I'm going to have shittier training sessions. And it's not going to be, so I think.
In my 20s, that's like I said, in my 20s, I was like, I don't need rest. I'm Superman. I can go all day long. And then now I'm like, bro, like I can't. Drinking now affects me a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm like, fuck, I can't. I need to start drinking water in between my drinks now. Like it changes a little bit. It makes you think about like the consequences of shit now, And back in my 20s, I didn't really care about it. Versus now, I'm like, I think about all of that.
My daughter's getting into skateboarding.
Oh, wow.
We have, she does the scootering and we got her a skateboard too. And we have a skate park in Templeton, and then there's a really badass indoor skate park in Atascadero. And so I've been taking her to the skate parks and stuff, and I used to skate a lot. And I wasn't like badass, but I was pretty good, like I'd skate the bowl and stuff.
The bowl.
And I freaking took her skateboard, and it's I'm not a full size, but it's pretty close to a full size skateboard. And I was trying to drop in. And I was like, nah.
Not the same. See, think about those consequences,
think
right?
about the repercussions. If I fall, like
this hip ain't gonna feel the same after.
Yeah. So
I want to touch on family a little bit too. How was it being away from your family while being on the show? How did that affect you? And then was that something that was on your mind a lot? Because I know for me, when I don't have my kid for like the 3 days I don't have her, I'm like, damn, I kind of miss her. First, like that last day she goes back to her mom, I'm like, all right, I'm ready to give you back a little bit. But that time when I don't have her, it's like,
That was the hardest part. That was what I knew was gonna be the hardest part, was being away for 6 weeks without contact. And then my wife actually had surgery while I was gone, and she had a skin cancer that she had to have removed.
Oh shit, okay.
And, I mean, it wasn't like a super invasive thing, but I mean, it's still
you want to be there for that though.
You
want to be there for your partner,
and like my mom actually had to go over and be with her. And luckily the producers, I asked them, like, will you reach out to her after the surgery and just make sure she's okay? Could you at least tell me that? And they did. And
so shout out to mom though, handling it for you.
My
Keep
mom
holding
did.
it down.
Yeah. But yeah, that was the hardest part. And my 3-year-old, so I have a 7-year-old, just turned 7, is my oldest daughter, and my 3.5-year-old daughter. You have a 3-year-old. When you're with them every day, you don't notice the changes as much
at all
until you like watch videos or something and like, oh, they've really changed a lot.
Like a month, like even a month ago or a week ago, I'm like, how in the hell?
So when I came back from the show, my daughter had changed. She wasn't the same. Her vocabulary had changed. She had a larger vocabulary.
Sentences are like crazy.
Even
now.
her like balance was a little better.
Mm-hmm.
Like little things that you don't notice on the day to day, but then if you leave for 6 weeks and come back, you're like, it was trippy.
No, it is.
It was almost sad, Like I was like, I
feel like you missed out on core.
Missed something.
But it wasn't too bad. Like it's not as bad. But yeah, as a dad, you want to be there for every single moment.
That
was
was
the same thing too. She goes to school during the week, but I work during the week, so she's with her mom, and she'll come back new sentences. Like she's telling me now, like I'm happy or I'm not happy or I'm sad. And I'm like, dude, like it's crazy that you're like learning all of this day to day. And it's like literally like almost they grow day to day at that age. So it's really crazy to see that.
Yeah, that was hard. But yeah, that was definitely the hardest part, was being away from my family, like, because I'm just like, now I'm just a dad, like.
No, yeah, me too.
Once you get in dad mode and dad life, like, I'm mowing the yard on the weekends, like I don't.
Dude, I know, me too. I'm just a dad now. Like, I don't really do anything fun. I don't go out to drink anymore. I'm literally a dad, and I got the weekends too, so I don't do shit. Literally, my day for me is like going to the beach or like hitting the park. Like, oh, that's a good day for me. Or watching the movies, because she goes to movies now. And she can be quiet. And I'm like, all right, we can actually watch a movie now.
I went and saw Little Mermaid the other day with both of them.
Did you? Hey, I know that's gonna be our next one we're gonna watch too.
Solid. They did okay. They get a little antsy by like it's a long movie.
It is, yeah. So I had her sit on my lap because we got her own seat. And then, like, by the end, she starts getting tired, so, like, she'll sit with us. So I kind of figured it out. But, yeah, they get that little antsiness a little bit.
During COVID, we've rented the movie theater. You could do that. And they were younger then, it was a couple of years ago. But they literally just did laps around the theater. And we were just like, well, there's only, like, 4 of us in here. We rented it.
Yeah, so it's not that bad.
I guess it works,
Yeah.
So, yeah.
How's it transitioning though from being like, teacher, dad to now getting kind of back in the spotlight? How are you transitioning with that? Does it feel kind of crazy, surreal, or?
I mean, I don't know. Like, I just always I'm just a normal dude. I don't know, just a normal guy. People like to watch people fight each other, and that just happens to be the thing I like to do. So, if I was an accountant, nobody would give a shit. I could be the best accountant in the world,
We had this conversation
care,
too about the basketball player. Like sometimes we get really good at our
Uh-huh.
job, and sometimes our job is really fucking cool, or in your case, sometimes it's not.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, I don't know. Everybody's striving to be the best at something,
100%.
Whatever it
Hopefully,
is.
hopefully you're trying to be the best at what you do.
Whatever it is, find the thing that makes you tick, and then try to be the best at that,
Everyone's on a different journey, bro. And on the topic of journeys, bro, if someone's at home, they're watching, because obviously here on the area, there's a lot of amateur shows and people just trying to come up, bro. If someone's trying to make it to the UFC at home, what's some advice you can give them being in the UFC, having gone through the whole journey on how they can get to the UFC as well?
I think being smart about who you're surrounding yourself with, making sure you're with the right people that are teaching you and kind of guiding your career. Yeah, I don't know. I just got fortunate, I started training with Tom Knox when I started taking the sport seriously after I had my first 3 pro fights, moved back here, and he was a great jiu-jitsu coach.
He's badass too. He has a big reputation out here. Tom.
He's
At
so
Elite. Shout out to Elite.
Tom Knox is most famous for pro skateboarding. He was a legitimate. He beat Tony Hawk in tournaments. He has a bracket where he beat Tony Hawk.
Oh shit!
Holy fuck.
Wow. I didn't know that.
So he was in the 1980s when street skating was just blowing up. He was the guy. He was one of the main guys He was sponsored by Santa Cruz, and they just came out with a new line of his stuff, retro stuff, old stuff.
Shit.
I was in a skate shop at the Central Coast and saw some wheels with his name on it. I sent him a message. He was like, "Hey, I bought these wheels, freaking $40, dude." It was but they had your name on it, so I had to grab them. So he was known for skateboarding, and then obviously he's a badass at jiu-jitsu, which there's a lot of comparable things there with balance and core strength and those sort of things. So I came up under him, and then I found Eloy Garza, my boxing coach, and it was just, I feel really made me a better striker. I trained a lot with Doug Marshall for a lot of years in Muay Thai.
Actually, I trained his brother, Blake, his younger brother, and we actually had a conversation about you too, and he said you're just an overall good dude too. So I heard Doug's a beast too, actually.
Yeah, he's a savage. He's kind of
He's still at it too, I think. I think he's still
I don't know
fighting.
if he's fighting.
Or you wanted to go to bare knuckle or something, right?
He
think I heard
had a
about that.
girlfriend who was doing bare knuckle. He was training her. I think they split up. I don't know.
That's crazy.
That's just no joke, bro.
Doug's got a good heart. He don't always make the best decisions, but he's got a good heart.
Yeah.
He really does. He's for being you see him and you're like, okay, here's this scary dude. Looks like might be a skinhead.
Yeah,
And then,
I know, yeah.
But he actually has a really good heart, and he's a good dude.
Bro, we interviewed him. We interviewed him at his gym for another amateur promotion, and when we interviewed him, we were walking up to him, and it was that same thing. I'm
It's
like,
fucking intimidating.
this
You're
guy's either gonna
shit.
blow us off, bro, or it's gonna go really good. It was
Hey.
cool. He was a cool guy.
I'd be too scared to go in there. I'm not
He's
gonna lie to
got
you
stories, man.
Does he?
He did some time,
guys.
and he hurt some people. He was wild.
No,
back
I
in
know,
the day.
yeah, dude.
You can see that in him, bro. Yeah,
He's
Blake
really
can see
calmed
that.
down.
Me and Blake are like this, bro. So he tells me a little bit of stories. So I hear
Yeah.
some things.
But yeah, I just think for a guy coming up in the sport, surround yourself with good people. You're only going to be as good as the people around you and the coaches that you have. And then, I don't know. For me, it was just just staying with it. Constantly learning, never thinking you weren't learning. I still to this day, every day, I'm what am I learning today? How am I getting better? If you don't, I think it gets really easy to just go to practice and not really I'm just here to sweat. And there might be days that's what you're there to do. I just need to get a workout in. But more often than not, it's you have to have intent with what you're there for and be focused on getting better. You have to be real with yourself. I'm not good enough yet. I got to get better. How am I going to do it? And then I guess I've been fortunate just to have surrounding myself with really good people. And even moving over to the Central Coast and having a team out there, the Pit, and those guys and the experience they have. And we're not a huge team, but again, I've always thought I really had the opportunity. I was at a crossroads by the time I went to the UFC, it was like, should I move to Sacramento or maybe Florida and train with one of these bigger like gyms with like 50 UFC fighters? Because they have them, you know, like American Top Team, Team Alpha Male. There's these gyms that have huge teams of fighters. And I chose not to, and I think that worked out for me because I had coaches who were invested in me. You know, like they didn't have 10 UFC guys, 20 UFC guys on their roster, so they were really invested in me. And so I think that for me, that worked out really well. You know, you don't have to come from a big gym.
So there's one thing I did want to talk to you about when I was doing like the research and everything. Your little brother has CP, right?
Yeah.
So growing up, my aunt had CP as well. So when she was little, she fell into a pool. And so like a lot of people can't understand her. She's in a wheelchair. But she went to college, though. Really funny, super cool. And she does like a lot of like work for like special needs and stuff like that. So it was really cool to see your background, too, and see how humble you are like as a person. Do you think that a lot of that kind of shaped you as who you are? Because for me, I was like fucking 5, 6, 7. Like we'd be out in Walmart, she's in a wheelchair, and like I'll see people like staring at her, and like I automatically want to fight them a little bit because I didn't like that shit. I'm gonna be honest with you, because a lot of people don't have someone like in their life that has special needs or that, you know what I mean, that deals with that.
And as a 10-year-old, a 12-year-old, you don't understand that about the person who's staring.
Exactly.
Like, you're just like, why are you staring at my brother?
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know, and like I had that mentality.
Because I was like 7, 8. We're in Walmart, people staring. Like I'd get mad, honestly. But she's like, no, like she was explaining to me like people aren't really like being negative.
They're not used to it. Some people have, you know, they're not used to seeing that.
Especially like in the 90s and like early 2000s, she's in a wheelchair. So I just want to see how that like molded you a little bit, because I don't feel like I have a lot of people I could talk to about with that, you know.
So I have 2 brothers with special needs. Joshua is 3 years younger than me. And he was a preemie, so he was born in 6 months instead of 9.
Oh wow, okay.
And he was born in 1990, and so back then, the technology wasn't what it was today. My wife's a NICU nurse, so she works with like sick babies.
Oh, see, my kid was in there for like 5 months too.
She might have been there. She was at Kuya for many years.
We were at Valley Children's though.
Okay,
Yeah, she had gastroschisis, so we were in there for 5 months. It was grueling, terrible.
That's rough.
Mm-hmm.
Mine had RSV when she was a newborn.
Oh wow, yeah.
RSV, is that what they have?
I think it is like that.
The respiratory one.
Mm-hmm.
And we were at the Children's Hospital up there for a couple weeks, and it was hard. It was hard because you're just like, I can't do anything. You know?
And then your kid's in there, and then we were in there for so long. Like I seen all the other kids that were in there. Some didn't have their parents visiting. So like, dude, it was like so emotional, and it was during 2020 when COVID. So she's 3.5.
Worse.
Yeah, so it was just fucking terrible, dude.
But yeah, so I grew up with 2 brothers. So Josh had CP. He only had, he didn't have any mental. He has a master's degree. The kid's killing it. But he obviously couldn't walk the same as everybody else. Walked on his toes.
Mm-hmm.
If you were to walk up to me and like give me a light shove, I would just go like this. He would like go stumbling back. He didn't have the balance. But we got him into wrestling. He wrestled all through high school.
Oh shit.
And he would just drop to his knees as soon as the match started and wrestle from his knees. And he was a 103 pounder and weighed about 80 pounds his senior year. He was tiny, you know. And then my youngest brother Jacob is severely mentally and physically handicapped. He got wrapped around the umbilical cord when he was when he was coming out, and had to cut off the circulation of his brain. And he's just I would say his like mental capabilities are that of like a 2 or 3 year old. He doesn't talk. He's blind. He's in a wheelchair. He's got a feeding tube now. But the one thing that kept intact with him was his emotions. Like, he's gonna laugh if he thinks something's funny, or you like make a funny noise. He'll be mad at you if he hasn't seen you in a while.
Oh, who knows, huh?
Usually, since I live out of town now, when I come back to visit, the first visit with him is not a good one because he's like mad at me.
From not being around.
Where you been, motherfucker?
Yeah, you better come visit anymore.
Yeah, and then like the second time, third, it gets better, and then like all of a sudden, then he's like happy
that
you
you're there
again
more
and stuff, So I guess he's like, it made me like understand like the perspective of life, like or like I guess you just sometimes find yourself like bitching about things about life, like this has been hard for me, or this was hard for me, or this I got screwed here, and then you like look at someone who's like really has it rough, and like and yeah, I think it makes you reevaluate
like the perspective of it is crazy.
Yeah. So and I like you said, like growing up with that, going on family vacations was hard, you know, like because we got wheelchairs.
All the extra, dude. Yeah. So we got the blue handicap things. We're parking hella close.
Yeah, that's
but
a plus.
dude, the like.
Hey, go to Disneyland with her. It's the best.
It is. I should.
We freaking get to the front of the line
Every time.
every
man.
time. I ride everything like a million times. It's the best.
She's hella
That's-
funny too. I'm not gonna lie. She's funny as shit. She has like the dirtiest jokes, or more than any fucking buddy would know. Like you wouldn't even expect it. But and like I said, she's an advocate too. She's on the board for like the state, so she does a lot with it. And
Nice.
she doesn't let her set her back at all. And she doesn't like taking handouts and shit like that. So it's
Yeah.
really cool. But like you said, it really does put things in perspective a lot. Especially when I feel like I'm going through some shit. I'm like, fuck, all right, you got it a little bit harder than I do.
Right? Yeah. And I definitely think you touched on like, I think just humbles you and makes you like, I don't know, I think it's giving me empathy for other people in life.
Different type of empathy.
Different type of empathy.
that some people don't have
You know,
nowadays.
like,
I feel.
Instead of being like judgmental or like, oh, you're lazy, you're a loser, this, like everybody's got their own story. They can go up their own way. And I'm not saying we're not responsible for our actions and like everything like that. And I believe in all that, you know, but like everybody's got their own story. And what's crazy, I think being a teacher too, sometimes you'll find out about kids' stories. And you'll be like, holy shit.
And they're like so young too.
Yeah, and you're just like, you had no idea, you know, and like, I got a kid, like there's a kid in my school who's, he's going blind.
Oh, fuck.
Like he's diagnosed with like whatever the disease he has,
Mhm.
he's slowly going blind. Like
That's
he can
rough.
still see right now,
But it's
but by the time he's 20, he ain't gonna see a thing.
damn.
And like every kid, that's just one example, but like when I've learned that about that kid, like how now I'm viewing that kid differently, and like you know what I mean, like
You empathize so much more. Yeah, and then
Yeah.
he knows that too. So
yeah,
it's like
and he's like aware of it, you know. It's like yeah, so I think that for me that gave me a lot of that, you know, empathy. And both my parents work in nonprofits, and my mom's the director for United Cerebral Palsy, which does special needs stuff.
oh wow,
Right at
okay.
Hanford. Their main office is in Fresno, but they have a branch in Hanford that's been there for 30, 40 years. And so she's there. And my dad's right across the street from
Oh, he
this
said he's
gym
right
here.
next door, right?
Yeah, Parenting Network. So and they do a lot in the community. They do like a trunk for treat, and like they do a bunch of different free babysitting. So say like families lost jobs and they help them get employed, and then they give them free babysitting.
Oh shit.
So that's not a barrier for them, you know. And like there's different programs within the nonprofit, but they do a lot within the community. So yeah, I'm all for the nonprofits and doing things that help bring us all up as a community, as opposed to me as an individual. So
no, I
much,
agree.
you know?
Yeah, some people are just selfish, man. So that's why I wanted to ask you about that too, just because I feel like it's something that gets overlooked a lot. And you know, we see people like in wheelchairs or something like that. And we kind of just like people just kind of turn the other eye. But you know, we had to deal with it or grow up with it or just have that personal connection. So
And
like not a lot of people have that with somebody.
I think for me, because I'm so used to being around special needs people, like I told you I took my daughters to see The Little Mermaid the other day, and they went in the women's restroom after the movie. And when my girl's without mom there, I can't go in, and they know that.
Yeah.
So they're like goofing around in there. I don't know what they're doing in there, you know? And so I'm standing outside the wet restroom waiting for them, and this family with 2 Down syndrome's kids, or they weren't kids, they were adults. It was a mom and dad that were older, and 2 people, I don't know if they were brother or sister, maybe married, I don't know, but 2 Down syndrome people. And I just walk up and start having a conversation with them about the movie, because I saw them in the movie. There wasn't that many people in there. And sometimes they're like taken back, but I think if more people just like these people just want to be a part of the community.
They
and
want to
have
acknowledge. They
They
just
want
want
to
to
be
be
acknowledged.
seen.
They're people. They have, you know, and so like sometimes I feel like I always make myself do that, like go have conversations when other people would just like look at them and kind of walk
Straight away, yeah.
you know, and like I'll just like go and hey, what'd you think of the movie? You know, just ask them a stupid question or whatever, but they're like taken back by it, you know. And then like the dad's like kind of like, is this? They're almost on guard, you know.
Yeah,
and then you start talking, and then all of a sudden the guard comes down, you know. But I always try to do that because
Yeah, me too.
people like I think they do like get, people are afraid, they're uncomfortable, so they're
'Cause they're not
automatic
used
like
to it.
triggers like to just like get away from the situation. You know?
Yeah.
I don't know.
No, that's good, man. Yeah, that's crazy. I just want to see what you thought about that. So, and then another thing I want to talk about too. So your family reached out to you, right? Your sister, I believe, reached out to you from your biological family.
Yeah.
How did that go down? And you want to talk a little bit about that as well?
Yeah, so I was adopted, and my brother was adopted together. We're biologically half brothers, and our mom was like 16, 15 when she had us. She was on drugs. His dad was a druggie. My dad was in prison for like 25 years. He was a drug trafficker from Mexico. He was a diesel truck driver that turned into a drug trafficker.
Oh, shit.
And he was hauling like lots of drugs. So
Side hustle.
he did like 20 some odd years.
Damn.
so yeah, when we got adopted, I grew up knowing I was adopted, and I was always the curious one. My brother could care less.
He's like, whatever.
He's like, these are my parents.
Fuck
They
it.
raised me. Like, he just doesn't have like the same level of curiosity that I do. That I'm like, Ancestor.com, DNA 23andMe.
He's all
like,
spitting the tube.
like,
Yeah, I could lose weight with this too.
like, yeah, it's like, and so I've always been more curious, just
Mhm.
not even like I needed it. Like, I didn't need to like have relationships with them. Or
Just
anything,
naturally kind
but
of.
I'm just curious as to what you always think about nature versus nurture,
Mm-hmm.
and like how much of this is genetic. What are some of the things I'm predisposed to?
That you like naturally.
Like naturally,
Yeah.
like I know I'm an addict. I have an addictive personality. Whatever
Damn
I'm doing,
energy drinks.
I'm addicted to it. So I think if you admit that and you know that about yourself and you're like, okay, if I've had my moments in my early 20s where I was like, I'm like a fringe alcoholic here. Like, you know what I mean?
I feel like a lot of us in our 20s though.
But it was like bad. Like,
Yeah, I was there too.
like this ain't like you're worse than everybody else in your group. You know,
Uh-huh.
like,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
it was like, and so then you learn like about yourself and you're like, I think I have an addictive personality because whatever I do, I'm like dive in like crazy.
And straight on with
You
it.
know,
Yeah.
like it's all my focus for every waking moment of the day is all I'm thinking about is that.
That's good though, bro. Because I feel like that's a trait that most successful people have. Whether it's business, whether it's fighting, whether it's whatever it is. If you can channel it to be the right,
That's
addictive,
the key, right?
Yeah.
Using
Be
it as like a
addicted
positive.
in
yeah.
the positive things as opposed to negative things.
Yep.
And so once I learned that about myself, and then just channel it.
And the right things. Though.
Yeah, because it could go south pretty quick.
Yeah.
But I think that was a part of it for me, was learning about my history and where I came from. And my sister had known about us her whole life,
Oh shit.
and we had never known about her.
Uh-huh.
And we kind of assumed
Whoa.
like we probably got half brothers or sisters out there. I don't know. They probably got around
Uh-huh.
in that environment,
Yeah.
And so yeah, when she reached out to us, and then they came out here and met. They stayed with us and hung out for a week or so, and then I flew out there this a couple of years ago. And so we try to every couple of years one of us make a trip.
Mm-hmm.
She's got kids and a husband, and I get along with her husband really well, and he takes me fishing. And in Oklahoma, there's so many weird fish, like prehistoric looking fish. There's
Oh
a-
shit.
a
Like
garth.
Pokemon.
You ever heard of a garth?
No.
It looks like an alligator.
Mark has.
Really?
It's got like a long beak, and they bite you.
What the fuck?
They like take a hand off.
God
What,
damn.
is that like lakes or like rivers?
Just like ponds,
Oh,
lakes,
shit.
Red River.
Yeah.
They're called Garth. I think I'm probably saying it wrong. Garth, I think it's called. Look it up on my Instagram because I have a picture with one.
It's there.
But we would catch them, and then when you catch them, because you can't get like close to them because they literally will bite your hand off.
Oh
So you
shit.
beat them with a club.
Catch
to knock them out.
And that's how you catch them. You just gotta beat
Well,
the
you
shit out of them.
catch them like a normal fishing, like you.
Oh, but once you reel it in,
You
you
really
just
gotta
lay it on.
you
You
gotta
can't
put it
like
to
grab it
sleep.
by the bass, like a mouth, like by the mouth. Like you gotta knock it out, beat it to death.
Even in fishing, bro, you find your way getting back to that violent pattern, bro.
No, but yeah, so now I just have a relationship with them. I met my mom and my birth mother, my birth father. I went back and met them. Still struggling in some ways, but doing like my birth father's sober. Been sober. He's been out of prison. He actually just lost his wife, so I talked to him a lot recently. But yeah, it's not really a thing where I have to have a relationship with him, but it was like I needed to answer questions about myself, why I am the way I am, why I tick the way I tick, and some of that is genetic.
Oh, yeah,
Like,
it's
it
just
isn't all
embedded
just
in
an
you.
environment. Like,
100%.
and so yeah, for me, it's just been like a ongoing process, and I think it's been good for me,
So you're glad that you got to reconnect with everybody then?
Yeah, and it's cool to have a relationship with a sister that you didn't know you had, and like
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
it's kind of wild,
Because you had brothers the whole time,
I
right?
just had
Like,
3
literally
brothers
nothing
growing
but
up.
brothers.
Yeah,
so.
my whole life I never had a sister. So
And then how long ago was it that she hit you up?
it was probably like 2014, 2015. So it's been a little while now.
Okay.
And just we have our challenges because it's hard to build a relationship when it doesn't seem. It's just hard.
We've been apart for so long, and you grew up with that person. It's just like it's kind of like foreign, It's like meeting like a stranger,
It really is.
Yeah.
And so it's taken us time to say like, hey, we need to work on this and try to build this authentically and not like
Organically.
force it.
Yeah. I have a half sister too. She always lived with her mom, but they lived in Corona, California, like down south.
Yeah.
So like we really didn't hang out too much, and then they moved to Dallas too. So just figuring out the time to going out there, figuring out time between her and her husband, and me and my kid, and just FaceTiming, and going out to Dallas here and there. So I kind of get it too a little bit.
Yeah. So it's been a challenge, honestly, but we're trying. We continue to try to build a relationship with her kids. Are all wrestling.
Oh shit, that's so cool. It's in the blood. It's in the blood.
Yeah, and they watch the fights and they're like,
fucking
my little
amp, dude.
nephew will go to school and be like, "Oh, my uncle's fighting Conor McGregor," and I'm like, "I'm not quite, not quite fighting Conor McGregor, but you could tell your friends
the gist
that.
of it.
You
You
know,
get the
like,
gist of
it's
it.
cool." So
You were about to, no? Like in the sense where I heard a story where on the Ultimate Fighter where like your night before the weight cut, right? When you were night before weigh-ins, he was like being super loud, running around the house, super crazy, right?
yeah,
That proper 12, man.
they stacked that. That whole thing was just like capitalism on steroids. Like the whole house was stocked with proper 12, McGregor Fast Protein, forged Irish Stouts, which is another one of his newer companies.
yeah.
That sounds bomb, though.
And then I didn't try one until after the show, but I don't even like stouts, but it
But
was
it
pretty
hit?
good. It was
Dude,
pretty good.
Irish Stouts, low-key, though. I'm about
And
to go
then-
get some now.
And then Tidal, I'm doing all this promos for this guy now, but Tidal Cream, it's just like a lidocaine menthol cream.
Okay.
Sore muscles, like Bengay almost, you know.
Got you, yeah.
But he hasn't marketed it.
But it's just Irish.
And those are all McGregor's brands. So
They're all his brands.
They
McGregor
just showed them in the
house.
house.
The whole house was full of them,
Uh,
and they had reps coming in to make sure the displays were up.
For every single fucking shot? Yeah.
And then like we didn't have enough counter space for shit, and we had like 3,000 proper 12 bottles, and none of us are drinking really because we're all, you know, like.
It's just
Yeah,
fucking
you
there.
train,
Yeah, I saw
bro.
that too.
Yeah.
Like, it's just there's so fucking much shit in there.
And we would always be complaining like, can we move some of these bottles so we could put our bread, like or whatever, like food
we
you
need?
know, like,
yeah.
yeah.
It was just like kind of ridiculous. but
Nutritional shit, please.
It was very yeah. You were doing a lot of promos for that kind of shit.
How was it being okay? Because you're like not anti-social media, but you're like, whatever about it. How was it being around like all those people in a house? Like you're stuck with these people now, being like from just a dad, you know, all this stuff. To, like now you're stuck with like a bunch of young bucks and some veterans, you know.
It was cool in some ways, like especially with the veterans. You know, the young guys were loud and kind of obnoxious at times, but they were all good people. Like we didn't have any like real shitty guys who were just like only one actually, but
He's not in the group chat, right?
he's not in the group chat.
I heard about that. He's not gonna be in the
we
group
got
chat.
15 in the group chat, and he's the only one who's not. He knows who
Damn.
he is.
He knows why.
But the older guys, it was cool because everybody had a crazy story. Like, and what was crazy was like Jason Knight is from like the sticks, like these sticks, like in Mississippi.
Mm.
Oh
like,
shit.
Like swamp land.
You grew up
like,
riding gators and
No, like
yeah.
literally
Riding
dude is from
gators.
the sticks.
What? Dude,
He's authentic as shit. Like that's what he is. And Roosevelt Roberts grew up in like Florida in like this like Kimbo days.
Oh yeah,
Like,
no. I was,
that-
he almost got in a
like-
fight with one of the dudes in there too, right?
Yeah, and so he lives in LA right now. He's actually trying to get back to Florida, but he straight up grew up in the streets. Like he was in juvie in and out, went to prison for a little while. Like that was his life.
Like real shit, yeah.
And so you think those two people come from completely different walks of life. They both struggled though. Those two guys have the best bond of anyone in the house. And it's because like the universal things they had dealt with. So even though you think of a dude who grew up in an urban hood and you think of a dude who grew up in the sticks, well, they're going to have different political beliefs. They're going to have different everything. But no, because of those guys' universal struggles, like they
Struggles
bonded
the
like
same,
crazy.
yeah.
And it was cool to see stuff like that, you know, because it was like, it made me sit back and realize like we're not as different as we think, you know, like people.
Yeah.
Like they grew up in different cultures and environments. Like you're not as different because there's certain things are universal for everybody, you know. So that was a cool experience. Just and then hearing some of their stories and some of their struggles, and so you're not alone, you know. The other guys doing the same damn thing. So yeah, it was fun.
And what did
Yeah.
they call you on there? What did they say? Who'd they
So-
compare you to?
Carlos Vera, he lives in Washington D.C. He's from Ecuador originally. He said, "Cody, you know what you remind me of?" And I said, "What?" And he said, "What's his name? Clint Eastwood."
Clint
Eastwood.
Hold on, though. Hear this.
Clint Eastwood off Gran Torino. You're like an old grumpy man. And I was like, I just straight looked at him and I was like, that was the greatest compliment anyone's ever given me. 'Cause I think
Give him the backstory of why.
that's what I'm shooting for, man. That's
Give,
what I'm shooting
give
for.
him the backstory of why they told you that.
Because they were doing their thing and like being loud and whatever. I didn't even say anything when they were being loud, like whatever. I would try to put the earplugs in my ears, but I have cauliflower ears, so they'd always fall out. So you're like trying to jam them in there, you know? Like I'm pretty sure I'm doing damage, you know? Like, and anyway, I was walking through the house at like 11 o'clock at night to go pee, and they were all still in the living room, like shooting the shit and just being loud. Like a lot of East Coast guys, they kind of had that loud mentality. And I just stopped. I was like half asleep. And usually I kept my mouth shut, but I was just like kind of over it.
Uh-huh.
And I was like, you guys ever, you ever think about do you ever think that do you ever stop to think about how like the loudest guys in this house are the youngest guys in this house? And it was like dead silent. They're all just staring at me, and then I just like grunted and kept walking to the bathroom. And then like the next day, he gave me that line, and I was like, "Thank you." Like
That's like the best thing I could be.
yeah, I guess I'm ready to be the old guy who's like looking around at the world like I don't get anything anymore.
Yeah. All right, bro. So before we end up wrapping up the podcast today, I really appreciate you coming on, by the way, bro. We know you're super busy on your training, all the stuff you got going on. You're a big family man as well. But a little bit of rapid fire questions. Whenever we told everyone, a couple of our friend group, we're going to get you on the podcast today. A couple different questions they had. A couple different questions, man. So one of the first ones is your top 3 UFC fighters of all time that are on your favorite list.
Ooh.
Nick Diaz, number 1.
Ooh, let's go.
He's my favorite. Even though he owes me $2,000, but that's another story.
Oh shit!
Wait, why? Can you say
love
why?
it.
So he did a show in Stockton.
Uh-huh.
He tried to dip his hat in the promoting game before Masvidal did or anything. This was back in like 2012, 13, 14, something like that.
Oh,
right
yeah,
before I was
way
in the UFC, not too long before.
Mhm.
And so I went and fought one of his guys in Stockton, and I was brought up to lose.
That's in
Like,
their territory,
yeah,
too.
and so the
Yeah.
whole anyway, his guy was a jiu-jitsu guy, like a brown belt and under Cesar Gracie, really good jiu-jitsu guy. We fought in a boxing ring, and the whole place would booed me, and I came in, because he was the Stockton guy and everything. And then the dude kept sitting on his butt, like he didn't want to strike, and he couldn't take me down. So he would just like, as soon as we engaged, he would like sit down on his butt, like come.
The jiu-jitsu guy.
Yeah. And I would just back up and say, stand up. You have to engage me. Like, I don't have to go to the ground with you.
Yeah.
And so the referee kept warning him, and it ended up, I dropped him a couple times and just ended up TKOing him. But I don't even know how much of it was a TKO, and him just kept dropping to his butt. Every time he got touched, he would just act like he got knocked down, but he'd fall down.
Trying to take you to the ground.
Come down here. That's all. My only hope is to get you in my guard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, the crowd turned midway through the fight and like was rooting for me because they were like, this guy's finally big. And anyway, I broke my hand in the fight, and he had the fight covered by State Athletic Commission. Everything was legit. I get home, I get an X-ray on my hand. They're like, okay, your hand's broken, this or that. I had to do these things, and I had like a medical bill that the California State Athletic Commission is supposed to pay because the promotion pays the commission to sanction their show, and part of that's insurance. So if you get injured in the fight, your bill is 100% covered by the athletic commission. That's the whole purpose of an athletic commission.
That's good. That's a good insurance policy, bro. Yeah.
Right?
Except
He already paid the money to have the athletic commission there, to have the insurance. You already paid the money from the promoter standpoint. You're not paying anything more now that I need reimbursement. This is the insurance's job.
Yeah.
But I have to go through the promoter to go through the insurance. All Nick had to do was sign the paper.
goddamn.
And I freaking reached out for like 3 months to him, to his people. Couldn't get him to sign the freaking paper, and I got stuck with like a $2,000 bill.
Come on, Nick.
Then I got into it
Come
with
on.
him in Vegas. I seen him at a bar at a casino in Vegas years later, and I walked straight up to him and I was like, "Hey, you owe me $2,000." And
You get the bill in your wallet, dude?
He'd been drinking, so we like ended up just shooting the shit. And he's like my favorite fighter, so like can't really be mad at him too long. But I do wish he would have gave me that signed that paper. But silly story.
Nick, it's not too late, bro.
So Nick Diaz is number 1.
Okay.
Man, that's tough. Top 3 ever?
Top 3
Ever.
ever.
It's hard.
Man, I really like the Diaz brothers are my guys. Their mentality. Who else? Who else do I just love watching fight?
Can be all time too, past, present.
I think I like watching Justin Gaethje fight. Like I know he's present, but I just like
Bulldog.
guys that every time they get in there, it's going to be a car crash.
Mhm.
Like it's going to be a freaking insane.
Yep.
There's going to be ebbs and flows and ups and downs, and you're dominating, and then you're dropped on your ass. Like it's going to be crazy. Like those kind of guys excite me and make me want to watch. So I guess I would say Justin Gaethje, at least currently, is a guy I can't miss watching. If he's fighting, I'm watching. Like there's no question. Same with Michael Chandler too. I mean, he's been fighting like that since he got in the UFC.
That's a solid top 3 right there,
That
bro.
is
So you got
solid.
Diaz, you got Gaethje, and you got Chandler.
I don't know if they're my all-time like 3
Yeah.
favorites, but That's just off the top of my head.
Fucking Chandler, bro. Sorry. I fucking idol, bro. He's such a good dude. I think you got to idol yourself after a good person.
All right, bro. So those are solid top 3, bro. So next question we had on the list is, what is your all-time favorite UFC moment?
After my first UFC fight, it was a pay-per-view, and I just got lucky enough to fight on a pay-per-view in Vegas. And we were at the casino afterwards, and I see Bruce Buffer playing blackjack.
Uh-huh.
And I was like, guys,
That's Bruce
Bruce
Buffer.
Buffer
Yeah, it's Bruce
playing
Buffer.
blackjack. So I was like, I'm going to go play with him. So I go. I didn't even look at what it was, what the game was, what the entry was.
You just wanted to play it. You're
I
like,
just wanted
fuck
to
it.
play.
Have to sit at the same
So I
table.
sit next to him. And there's no one at his table. He's by himself at a table. So I sit next to him, and I was like, hey, Bruce, you called my fight tonight, and kind of introduced myself again to him. You know, he probably didn't remember me or anything. And so you get to talking. The dealer's like, are you in? You're sitting at the table.
You gotta
Like,
play.
yeah, deal me in, you know. $50 hands.
Oh,
And so I was like, okay. So usually I was go to the $5 tables usually, but okay. You know, it doesn't work.
Just step up a little bit.
Yeah, so I play a hand. I'm talking to Bruce, having a good conversation. I lose. I was like, okay, play another hand, put another 52 like chips down. Look, dude, I lost like 4 or 5 in a row, and I was like, I just lost like $300
He's like that quick.
in a matter of minutes, you know. And then I was like, we're still talking, and I was like, all right, Bruce, thanks for talking to me. I think that's the end of our conversation. I got to get off this
I can't
table.
afford the rest of this conversation right
It's
now.
like I just had a $300 7-minute conversation with Bruce Buffer.
It's Bruce Buffer though, bro.
It was cool, you
That's
know.
a once in a lifetime.
Yeah, that is dude, that's a once in a lifetime.
Bro, that's
thing.
like,
funny.
but the fact that he called your fight, bro, like as far as introduce you, like Cody the Renegade Gibson, like, bro, that's like a bucket list thing. I feel like is hearing him announce your fight. You know, hearing
Yeah.
announce you come in is like nuts.
It is cool. I mean, the UFC is cool and everything and all of that, but at the end of the day, like the sport is the same thing. Whether you're at fighting to the Taji Palace or Eagle Mountain Casino or 559 fights, like you get in a cage, they lock the door, and you got to fight somebody. You know, like it don't matter where. Nothing else matters. Like the size of the stadium, the magnitude of the event, what's on the line for that fight. It's a title fight. It's this or that. Like at the end of the day, it's the same thing every single time you get in there. So I always try to remind myself of that when you're like, because you can get starstruck.
It kind of brings you back
know?
down.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like stop acting like this is bigger than you. Like you can do it.
You
know?
got here for a reason.
Yeah,
You're there for a
so
reason.
That's how I try to think about it. But
That's crazy, bro. And then last question is just kind of like this kind of comes from personal. It's just we've always been kind of watching like Dana White, his business moves he's always made, kind of just coming up in the UFC. So what's your take on Dana White, and how has it been working with Dana White?
again, I think fighters deserve more money, and I think Dana White's a big reason as to why we don't have that more money. I mean, I'm fortunate to get back in the UFC if we'll see how things end up going here, but I know he's made a lot of great business moves, for MMA, for the UFC. You got to respect all the things he's done for the sport, for sure. And I've never been in his position, in his shoes, so I've never, his job is different. Like, I don't have any experience, so that's just right off the bat, but I don't know, man. I think I think fighters need to stand up for each other, for the sport. They want to they want to pretend like we're at NFL level, we're NBA level, we're that of this sport. Then we should be getting paid that amount of money. Like too many fighters I know struggle. And even in the UFC, unless you're at the top of the bill, like it's a struggle sometimes. And people don't take into account all the expenses. Like. Yeah, you might have made 60 to 80 grand, 100 grand in that fight, but like how much of it's going to a manager, how much of it's going to your coaches, how much, like all these, how much goes to taxes because you're an independent contractor. And so
How
your
long were you
tax-
training for that fight too?
how much training was involved, how many hours of training just for that fight, let alone your whole career of training, So I don't know. I feel like as a fighter, like, the risk of what you're doing. Like I look at every fight like I could die. I will die in here. Like that's my mentality. Like I'll die in here. Like, and so, and you see people and you see injuries and you see older fighters and, there's all the concerns about CTE and everything. So, what you're like, I already kind of came to terms with it. Like, I'm going to be old and crippled. Like,
It's part of the profession.
it is what it is.
Still love it.
Like, I'd rather do it than not do it. So it is what it is. And so I think when you start to grapple with all those things you go through and put into it, like you want to reap the rewards, So I'm still trying to reap them. And yeah, Dana's obviously done a lot for the sport, but yeah, I don't know.
Got to get that fighter pick, man.
My wife would say, keep my mouth shut.
Yeah. Thank you so much, bro. We appreciate you being on today. And there's one final question we wanted to end it off with. It's like a signature All Aces podcast question that we have. And it's kind of like a situational base, bro, where I want you to picture young Cody, right? Maybe before you got in the UFC, maybe when you were just kind of fighting the smaller promotions where you didn't really know if it could be a career, or maybe even before you started fighting, bro, where it was kind of like you had that anger and you didn't really know where to channel it. What's some advice you would give younger Cody on just letting you know that everything's going to be okay and everything's just going to work out?
You guys have hard questions.
Got to make you think a little bit.
Give myself advice? Man, I don't know. I guess if you're trying to give yourself advice, you're really talking about regrets you have, like things you would have done differently. If you could go back and tell yourself, like, hey, do this differently, you know? I don't know, though, because I think, like, I'm still on the journey. So I'm like, would I change anything? I don't know where this is going to end, you know? So maybe the peaks and the valleys and everything that goes along with it, like, all happened because they had to happen, because the X at the end of this road is better than it would be. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's hard to be like, you should have gone back and done this. And then, like, well, you don't know if that would have, in the long run, you know, that was something Chandler had said actually on the show, was like, sometimes, like, bad things happen in your life, or things that are perceived as negative, like I lost the job, or I didn't get the promotion, or I didn't get the championship, or I lost the fight, or whatever it is, and you think this is horrible for my life. And then, like, 10 years later, you realize, actually, that was the best thing that ever happened in my life. Like, losing that, missing out on that. And so, like, I don't know. It's hard to be like, it's hard to think about regrets. You can have them. Like, I have them. Like, I have things, like, I would tell myself, like, you should do this differently or that. But then, I don't know, maybe ask me in 3 or 4 years when I'm retired and from fighting, and be like,
You got more than 3 or 4.
I don't know.
Yeah.
We'll see.
We'll come back here, bro. So whenever you do retire, we'll have another podcast, and we'll come back here. We'll kind of shoot the shit some more.
Recap it.
Sounds good.
But thank you, man. Thank you for, taking your time out of your day, your crazy training schedule to come see us and, open up, give us a little bit of backstory about you and about everything. And also, thank you, Ronnie, for letting us be here at Absolute Body Armor. If you guys have a kid that you want to get in shape for their sport, whatever sport it is, he's going to get you right. Fast twitch, slow twitch. Even if you're trying to get in shape, this is the place to go to. Let me tell you, we got a lot of stuff coming this way, so be ready for it.
Talk about the facility, too, man. The facility, if you guys didn't know, this is the facility right here. It's a huge facility
Top
right here in
tier,
Visalia. Top tier. The lighting looks cool. Equipment's a 10 out of 10. And these guys have a really good vibe to them, man. So if you're in Visalia, in anywhere around this Tulare County area, or if you're from Fresno, man, make sure you make the trip, come down to this gym, and he'll get you right, man. But, yeah, thank you guys for watching at home. Appreciate you guys. Any last stuff to add, guys?
I just want to say, man, that your story, man, is so great, because I know for sure, like I said in the beginning, man, it's going to inspire a lot of people, because some people want to quit after a year or two of doing something. They try a business, they try a diet, they try whatever they're trying, right? And they want to quit after a year or two. And you never gave up, or you never quit at the 8-9 years. And, you're seeing some light at the end of the tunnel. And like you said, I mean, you don't know where it's going to go, but and maybe nobody ever knows where it's going to go, but you never gave up on yourself, and you never gave up on your dream, and you're still pushing, man. So if there's one lesson you could take away, it's just don't fucking give up. If you're a year or two in, there's still plenty of time. Don't give up, man. So thank you for your time, bro, and thank you for there was a lot of good lessons, bro, within your story. So I really appreciate your sharing, man, opening up, and be just keeping it real.
Putting on for the Valley, bro. You inspire us, bro. Even as something like a podcast has nothing to do with athletics, but like for us, when we don't have anything going on, we're like super small podcasts. We're like, damn, well, this stuff like that, hearing your story, bro, you kept going. You lost 27 matches in a row, and you still kept going. So for us, we're like, damn, bro, this is easy. Like, we can let's just keep rolling with the podcast, and this is fun. So you inspire us, bro, especially being from the Central Valley, small town, and you're putting on, bro. So
well, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on, guys. This is it's cool to see anyone in the Valley. Even like talking to you right now just for a few minutes, and like people that are doing stuff that are trying not to set the bars or setting the bar higher, and like we could push further just because we're from the 559 and we're not in LA or we're not in the Bay. that don't mean shit. Like,
Yep.
you know, like we could do big things right here in the valley, and it's cool to see you guys doing stuff like this. I saw your guys' podcast when you hit me up, and I was like, I didn't even know you, you know, and I like started looking.
I didn't even know you.
I started looking at you a little bit, and like your page and like your podcast, and I was like, dude, these guys are doing some good shit.
No, we appreciate
So,
that. I
appreciate
know.
that,
I was
man.
like hoping we could get you on too. I was like, oh, okay. Who do I know? Like they said, we were trying to look at how we could get in, and my client and your wife, and I was like, oh, we're going through the wife. We got to get this one in, man. This has to be the way to go. And then, so yeah, I really appreciate you, man. Like I really appreciate you taking the time out of here, and you know, just like they said, sharing more than just, you know, that surface level. Like you gave a lot in here. Like, I mean, you've overcome a lot. And so just your story, man, I'm still processing everything. This is definitely by far my favorite one so far that we've had for a plethora of reasons. So I really thank you for coming out of here and really taking your time and being genuine with this.
100%.
I'm gonna have to come work out here now.
Let's go. Let's run it.
Let's roll.
Let's do it.
All right, guys. Appreciate you guys tuning in today. Appreciate all the love you're always showing us. Make sure if you haven't yet, tune into Ultimate Fighter to watch Cody. He's going after it, man. And you haven't tuned in yet, man. You're in for a show. So appreciate you guys tuning in. We'll see you on the next one. Peace.
Peace.